Please be seated. The first item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in Cluster 2, Social Services. Members may press the talk button on their desk if they wish to ask supplementary questions. And I wish to remind honorable members that members requesting supplementary questions will be cleared as soon as the member of the executive starts answering the fourth supplementary question. The first question has been asked by the Honorable Johnson to the Minister of Water and Sanitation. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Water and Sanitation, National Water and Sanitation Bill speaks to the question raised by the Honorable Johnson. The current challenge is that about water is that water entitlements, they tend to be, at a practical level, to be separated from the land. As a result, those who hold the license or entitlement, when they leave the farm, they move away with the water rights or entitlements. The bill, as the National Water and Sanitation Bill as it stands now, it doesn't separate the two. We think it will solve the problem. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thanks for that response, Honorable Minister. Will this National Water and Sanitation Bill be completely doing away with what is referred to as riparian rights? These are part of your 1956 Water Act, to a point where with the current set-aside water use licenses, if I were to ask as to how much does the minister think is left of those set-asides in the number of hectares that are typically getting to be set aside for black farmers? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that information, I'm trying to get that information from the officials. I can just use two examples. In the Eastern Cape, the late former Minister Kade Asma allocated 3,000 hectares of water rights to emerging farmers. Today, none of them have got a hectare of water rights in their hands. The same problem is happening. I got a delegation from farmers from the Northern Cape as soon as they came into the department. Same problem. So we're solving that. One of the things that we started doing, we've set up a small working group on the 10th of November so that we can look at separating this entity, this responsibility, and set up an entity which will look at this function so that we can speed up and also have all the necessary information that is required to deal with this question, because the emerging farmers are suffering from this. The transformation in the water space has not taken place because of this problem. Thank you, Chair. Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I wanted to ask you about the current state of affairs in your own assessment and evaluation. That those who are owning land with water rights, I wanted to ask you about the behavior patterns and attitude, whether the dams that are being owned at the moment, I know it will be very difficult for you to get the number of dams readily available. what is the behavior patterns? Are they accessible to the communities within the proximity, or whether they are used exclusively by the farmers concerned, in which case there could be some challenges here and there? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Member, thank you very much for the question. We have been having a couple of situations where you have one single farmer owning huge dams, and therefore, at his choice, make water available to communities. You know very well the case in point in KZN. I sent my advisor to KZN to a meeting to discuss this matter just a month ago. And the report that I got is actually embarrassing, because water, in terms of the Act, water is a national, is a national good. And therefore, we should be controlling and managing the relations that are created by that law in terms of transforming this sector to that extent. Again, we have several farmers who have been charged as well because they built dams without a license and things like those. So there isn't enough or sufficient control over this function. And I repeat that is exactly the reason why I've set up this team of people who are knowledgeable in the sector to say to them. I was looking at Schedule 3 of the PFMA, but they're saying to me there are other options, because it turns out that there was an attempt made during the late Minister Mlewa's time to deal with this question. I'm moving in that direction so that we can have a professional body that deals with this matter outside of the department, but accountable to the Minister. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mashabela.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, the Constitution of the Republic, the National Water Act and Water Services Act recognize water and sanitation as a basic human right for all. However, this recognition has not fully ensured equitable access to all. In light of the pending of decision on expropriation of land without compensation, what legislative and policy measures do you have in the pipeline to ensure equitable access to water for all? Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Firstly, I've referred to the National Water and Sanitation Bill. That is a comprehensive bill that is meant to address all of those questions. Secondly, I said, Honorable Speaker, earlier on, as recently as on the 10th of November, I met with all the stakeholders, or most of them, in the sector. And then out of that, we came up with 5 working groups. One of them is to specifically deal with this question. Because much as much as water is a national good, but land, when somebody who owns that license or entitlement leaves the land, they live with that. We don't want that. We want to make sure that in terms of the bill I'm referring to, there's no separation between the land and water. So that if somebody sells the land with the water entitlement. That's the direction we're going into. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Passon.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, you are the custodian of water in this country on behalf of the people of South Africa. This does not make government the owner of water resources in the country. Some water does not belong to government. Minister, if you nationalize water, how will this affect the economy and food security in the country, and how will this affect current and future infrastructure development by agriculture? Thank you, Minister.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Member. when the drafters of that legislation did so, they meant that water would not continue, as happened in the past, to be a preserve of a few people, particularly white farmers, because now black farmers were emerging, and therefore also had to were laying claim to the water, and therefore the rights over water had to be equitably distributed across the board. Now, if water, therefore, was not, in terms of that act, if it was not handed over to the state to control, that transformation would not happen. The weakness right now is that much as that act says that the minister on behalf of government and the people of South Africa is the custodian, but practically that doesn't happen. And it is because of the weaknesses in the makeup of the delivery mechanism in terms of water. And therefore, what I'm trying to do now in saying we want to have an entity that is professionally going to deal with this matter to make sure that none of the people who deserve to have water use rights or entitlement is deprived thereof. That is what we are going to do, and therefore we are going to use that power which the law entitles us to the effect of transforming the water services space. Thank you.
We now come to question number 357 that has been asked by the Honorable Malatsi to the Minister of Human Settlements.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Gauteng Department of Human Settlement has informed us that it has formed a technical committee to oversee and manage the matters of illegal land occupation, comprising of municipalities in Gauteng, law enforcement agencies, parastatals, and other national departments relevant to land matters. The committee coordinates efforts to counter and prevent, on a proactive manner, the issue of illegal land occupations in Gauteng. It is to be noted that the Premier of Gauteng has taken steps on a proactive basis to ensure the expedited release of service land, to ensure that communities are able to be allocated service stands and thus not resort to illegal occupation. Furthermore, the province and municipalities have been requested and advised to improve transparency in the housing allocation processes. The poor communication and lack of justification for allocations is a matter which allows opportunism related to illegal land occupation. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Malatsi.
Thanks, Speaker. Deputy Minister, what your colleague in Gauteng didn't tell you is that he told the provincial legislature that there were 2,700 instances of land invasions in the 2016 and 17 financial year. There was a further 1,600 instances of land invasions in the last financial year. In all of these instances, evictions took place in 13 areas and there were only arrests in 22 instances. But what we do know is that there are political parties such as the EFF who promote land invasions which disrupt government's ability to deliver houses. So my question to you is, do you think it's responsible of political parties like the EFF to promote land invasions which disrupt government's ability to deliver houses to residents? Thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy Minister.
Point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Member.
Point of order.
What we
There's a point of order, okay. Honorable Gozi, what is the point of order?
Honorable Speaker, the honorable member is deliberately misleading the House. He knows that if he's to make a claim, he must submit it as a substantive motion. I put it to you, Honorable Speaker, you will not go anywhere in the literature of the EFF and find where we say people must invade the land. That is
Honorable,
deliberately misleading the House.
Honorable
The
Ndlozi.
lexicon is occupation of the land,
Honorable Ndlozi,
and that's substantially different.
you will expand on your policy position when you have a time to make a speech. But I will look
But
at
Honorable
the
Steiners, we
Hansard.
can't both stand.
I will, no, Honorable Ndlozi, let me address you. Take your seat, Honorable Ndlozi. I've heard your point, and I'm saying you can make your own policy position clear when you elaborate, when you have the opportunity to speak. But I look at the Hansard about what the honorable member said.
Madam Speaker, I actually have a rule I'm rising on, Rule 85. It is unparliamentary to refer to a member as having deliberately misled the House. So I'd ask that when you do study the Hansard, that you also look at that, because it is unparliamentary
I will.
to say that a member has
Thank
deliberately
you.
misled the House.
Honorable Minister,
On a point of order, Speaker.
what's the point of order?
Speaker, I just want to draw to your attention that each time Steenhuisen is standing when you are speaking, and that is very disrespectful. We need to look into that. Each time
Okay,
he's
honorable
doing that,
member.
and that is disrespectful. Since you
Okay.
know the rule, you know you can't stand when another member is on the floor. Since
Thank
you
you.
know the rules better.
Thank
but
you,
don't worry,
honorable
we'll know
member.
it too.
Can we allow the Deputy Minister to respond?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to
Point
say
of
that I
order. Point
think
of order.
the issue of Gauteng having rapid land release
A
program.
point of order, Speaker.
Where's the point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm sorry to interrupt the Minister. The honourable member from the EFF called the Honourable
Order,
Steenhuisen-
honorable members.
called the Honourable Steenhuisen by his last name. Can you ask the member to address the Chief Whip of the Opposition correctly? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, honorable members. It's quite early in the afternoon, mind you. Please, let's just stay calm so that we can sustain our ability to carry the program forward. Honorable Deputy Minister, please give the answer to the question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to say that I think we should applaud the Gauteng province for the rapid land release program, because it is important. For example, it clearly identifies the fact that we don't have one-size-fits-all approach. The land release programs allows communities to have service stands, and they can build their own homes with the support of government in some other instances. But most importantly, that even the protests around the land and land occupation has gone down a bit. And it's a process that needs all parties to buy into it, because at the end of the day, we want stability in South Africa, particularly as far as shelter is concerned, because it's a thorny issue. I thank you.
The Honorable Nchaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy Minister, there's a tendency on the part of beneficiaries that allocated houses, the tendency of selling these or renting them. I just want to check, therefore, how far are we dealing with that challenge, or how far have you dealt with that challenge, so that these houses are given to the people who are in need? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, member, for that question. Yes, we urge communities, please, not to sell government houses, because the houses are given to them for free, creating the asset for each family. Selling houses, it means we're giving houses to people who don't deserve them. So it's important that we have that preemptive clause where we say people cannot sell their houses within the space of 8 years, having given a house. But more than that, we would have preferred a situation whereby people don't sell their houses at all, because it's about generation to generation. But at the moment, there are people we know they are selling houses, and we are bringing hawks and all other parties to ensure they get arrested. I thanks.
The Honorable Sithole.
Angibonge mhlonishwa somlomo. Mhlonishwa sekela ngqongqoshe. Uqolwa kwelokhu komhlaba akhona eGauteng kuphela. Kukhona eFree State, ukhona eNorth West, ukhona eMpumalanga, ukhona eKZN. Umbuzo wami uthi nationally iliphi iqhinga enalo lokunceda ukuthi lokuqolwa komhlaba kukwazi ukuncishiswa nanokuthi njengamanje umhlaba ngomningi bawo mawubheka ama-informal settlement akhula ngomningi ngenxa zokuthi umhlaba uyaqolwa ukuthi iliphi iqhinga elinalo ku-national ukunceda omasipala.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
For Omaspala, we have what is called Urban Settlement Development Grant. It is meant to buy land for the municipalities, particularly the metros. And we urge provinces also to adopt this approach of Gauteng, of the Rapid Land Release Program, because it alleviates the pressure.
Invasions, when the property clause in the Constitution has been removed, because it is because of the property clause that makes it illegal to invade land. So how will they stop that if the property clause is removed? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Reverend Meshwe. Thank you very much for the question. But when you deal with the issue of property clause, it's putting the cart before the horse. Let's allow the process of working on the issue of the land in Parliament to take its place and discuss the property clause within that ambit. It must be taken in totality, not as a separate piece of legislation. I thank you.
We now go to question number 331 that has been asked by the Honorable Hlonyana to the Minister of Human Settlements. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, the Speaker. Based on the consultation and information the department has received from the eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality, the requisite plans to provide Mr. Sipho Mnguni with a subsidized house are on track within the time frame which was alluded to earlier on. And I just want to say that on the Mr. Mnguni's case, it's a case of a house, a stand, where in that particular stand there are 3 families. Now, Mr. Mnguni must have a house. So we need to remove the 2 other families from that particular stand. That process is underway, so that in the remaining stand, Mr. Mnguni's house can be built. And that consensus has been reached with the municipality, so that house will be built. I thank you.
The Honorable Hlonyana.
Thank you, Speaker. For over a year, we have been fighting with your department so that Mr. Sipho Mnguni receives a house, so that he is able to live in dignity. Your department and the eThekwini municipality have done everything in their power to delay this process and have given us excuse after excuse. That is why we doubt Mr. Mnguni will ever have his house in March 2019. That is why we want to know who will be held accountable if come March 2019, Mr. Mnguni does not have a house as promised.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I just want to make the House understand that in terms of slum upgrading in particular, it is a difficult process. What we are having now, we're having 2,200 informal settlements across South Africa. Out of that, 1,845 have been assessed and been developed. And we have, out of that, 850 with clear plans of upgrading. So it's not an event scenario, it's a process. This particular incident has happened because across South Africa, including here in Cape Town, there are lots of families who are occupying one stand. There are 3 or 4 families. So we have that problem that we've inherited. But what we are saying in this particular case, we have made sure the issue of Mr. Mnguni has been lifted up so that it gets prioritized. Mr. Mnguni will definitely have his house. And you can even hold me responsible for that. I thank you.
The Honorable Mafu.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy Minister, Mr. Mnguni's problem arises from a problem of informal settlements upgrade. Now, how does the department hope to prevent or mitigate an occurrence of a similar case Office, Mr. Mnguni, in future, because we have a lot of informal upgrading in the country, and there's a lot of them that are occupying more than one stand.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
The only way of avoiding a scenario which is similar to the Mnguni scenario is to make sure that the people themselves, Mnguni and them, must be involved in the upgrading process. That is why we're talking about the social compact, where government, municipality, and communities, they decide about their future. So that from area to area, communities are involved in the upgrading of their own informal settlements.
The Honorable Malatsi.
Thanks, Speaker. Deputy Minister, one of the biggest challenges with access to housing projects is that there are opportunistic people who illegally occupy houses that people like Mr. Mnguni have registered for. In March this year, there was an instance where MK veterans invaded a housing project in Margate, and people who were registered as beneficiaries there were pushed out. So what is your department doing to prevent such groups from pushing back those legitimate beneficiaries of housing projects to get their houses?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Thank you, Speaker. One of the things that we are saying, that the issue of occupation of houses, particularly in a situation where a housing has given to a particular person and somebody else is in the house, that's completely illegal. And it's an issue that we don't want it to be promoted. That is why there is a technical committee, particularly in Gauteng, and we want it to be replicated in other provinces, where law enforcement from all angles are part of that committee, and together with officials from province, national, and the municipality. So at the end of the day, we nip in the bud the issue of occupation of houses, because it's illegal occupation of houses. And in some instances, you'll find out other people have title deeds and they are not in houses. That is completely incorrect. And I can assure you that as a department, we even want to move towards centralizing even the beneficiary list process. So that at the end of the day, at a national level, we can know which house has gone to whom. At the moment, it's still free for all, and I think it's incorrect.
The Honorable Sitole.
Angibonge kakhulu Somlomo nosekela kaNgqongqoshe ukuphendula kwakhe. Kodwa ke into ekhathaza ukuthi umbuzo ukuthi bazoba bangaka abantu abazofana noMnguni okuzofana baze babikwe ngaphambi kohulumeni abone ukuthi khona izinto engahambi kahle. Ubudlelwane phakathi be-ward councillor nomasipala bunjani uma abantu bazoze babikwe ama-cutting age ngaphambi kokuba khona i-action ethethwayo ukuthi njengamanje intervention ye-national imi kanjani?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable Member, we are emphasizing that local committees are very, very critical, particularly ward committees. Because in many instances, these things happen at a local level. That's why it matters most. That is why we want councillors themselves, together with communities, to advise departments of the kind of problems they are confronted with on the ground. At a departmental level, it is important for us to have a coordinating mechanism, because you find that municipality will say it's a province, and the province will say it's a municipality. You need a coordinated approach in order to solve the problems of our people on the ground. And in that instance, the Department of Human Settlement has taken a lead. Thank you.
We now come to the question number 313 that has been asked by the Honorable Tom to the Minister of Arts and Culture. The Honorable Minister.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Speaker. And thanks to Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Ms. Tom. The Department of Arts and Culture has established various oversight mechanisms to assist the public entities to achieve their targets as adopted and tabled in Parliament. These interventions are important in ensuring that the public entities are better managed and accountable through sound corporate governance and performance management system. The Minister signs shareholders' compacts with chairpersons of the DAC public entities. The shareholder compact symbolizes a performance contract between the Minister and the Council. The department has also developed a set of templates to ensure standardized reporting and to facilitate a consistent assessment of performance through the submission and analysis of the quarterly reports. Some of the forums include Minister engages all the entities, the organization as a whole, both the staff and management together. And these are the steps, Honorable Member, we take. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Tom.
Siyabulela, Speaker. Mphathiswa, siyabulela ngamanyathelo owathathileyo ukuhlumisa nokulungisa imeko ibigquba. Ingaba la manyathelo anawona umthelela obonakalisa inguqu kula maqumrhwana. Ingaba kananjalo ikhona into esinokuyifunda kula manyathelo eza kwenza into yoba inkqubela phambili ibe khona. Enkosi, Speaker.
The Honorable, the Minister.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo wekomiti leParliament ehloniphekileyo. Umthelela mkhulu ngoba la mingabe senza lokhu senza isiqiniseko sokuthi abantu kuyafinyelelwa kubona. Futhi kukwazi ukuthi nezinto eziyingqinamba ababhekene nazo kulezi zakhiwo lezi ziyakwazi ukuthi zithathelwe phezulu. Izifundo ke njengoba ubuza esingathi sizitholile la ukuthi ngaphandle kosihlalo bamaboard no CEO kubalekile ukuthi sifike phansi kuona ama organization kumbe ama entities qobulwayo ngoba lapho uthola nezinye izinto ongakwazanga ukuyithola ngapha kosihlalo no CEO. Siyabonga kakhulu.
The Honorable Pozzoli.
Sorry, Chair, pressed in error. Thank you.
Oh. Honorable Chaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, most of these entities have got a tendency of incurring irregular, wasteful and fruitless expenditure. Therefore, I just want to check, Honorable Minister, whether perhaps do you intend to introduce any legislation that can prevent this from happening by charging the people responsible, that is the officials, so that now this does not occur in future. Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Minister.
Well, thanks, Honorable Member, for your question. Well, the corrective measures are embarked upon on the weaknesses of these entities. And there's been a lot of improvement without sending anybody to the gallows, because when the Auditor General audits, he then comes up with suggestions on things, especially on matters of emphasis, what is to be done. And if those things are followed through, you see a difference insofar as that is concerned. So we have seen a difference in some of these entities. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I understand, Honorable Nyambos, that there have been a number of summits and workshops whereby the department was trying to work together with the entities, because it was discovered that the entities seemed to be working in silos. Whereas they reported to the department, they were part and parcel of the department. Now you have alluded to the fact that there are a series of meetings and there is a forum where these work together. But it seems with some of the entities there is no change at all. And I wonder what you do say with regard to that, whether there is a lackluster attitude from those entities. For instance, Minister, just to make an example, one entity had a problem of 12.6 services rendered without an official purchase order, 960,000 for a contract continued on month-to-month, 118,000 no formal approved deviation, and this is the Ditsong Museums of South Africa, submitted on the 16th October 2018. Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Well, Honorable Member, thank you very much for question. And I'm very much aware of that institution you're talking about, Ditsong. Yes, what you are counting and more was discovered to be taking place in that entity. In fact, in the last financial year, the entity got a disclaimer. And after the portfolio committee, which I must say that has been working very hard together with other stakeholders, we were able to turn things around. As we speak now, yes, we have not reached the point we want to reach. It's qualified audit, but what has been put in place clearly shows you that there is improvement and we are going to have a clean audit going forward. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dlamini. You look like a Dlamini.
Thank you very much. I take it as a compliment, Speaker. Minister, just to remind you that we haven't quite forgotten about Marikana. But that said, Minister, the Pan-South African Language Board is one of the most important single entities in government. Its task is immense: the development of South Africa's 11 official languages and the promotion of multilingualism, but it has totally failed. Your department has done nothing to bring all 11 of South Africa's languages into the mainstream, and 24 years into democracy, matric exams are only written in English or Afrikaans. Has your department made any efforts or engaged the Department of Basic Education at any point about the writing of matric exams in languages besides English or Afrikaans? Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Minister.
Somlomo.
Yes, Honorable.
Order. I think that that definitely is a wholly new question altogether. It's not related to the question that was asked, because the question that was asked was about the accountability of entities, and this question is altogether on other substance and the languages and all that. So it's a new question altogether in violation of the rules. Thank you.
I see the Minister. Did I see you nodding, Honorable Minister? Do you agree with the intervention of the whip?
Well, I do, Honorable Speaker, and the whip is correct, except to say that the member, if he or any other of his colleagues would be attending portfolio committee meetings, which I attend, and the Deputy Minister, he would be more informed of what each entity is doing. But ngizokala ngokufundisa isiZulu.
Honorable members, we have taken the supplementary questions that were
Point of
due
order, Speaker.
on this particular matter. Honorable member, I think the whip has put a clear position on your supplementary question. Do you want to raise another order? What is the point of order?
Speaker, the fact that the Minister says that this has been addressed in the portfolio, then it should be possible for him to share it with the House.
No, Honorable member, you then submit an appropriately submitted question through the system. Thank you, Honorable Member. We now come to question number 320, which has been asked by the Honorable Van der Merwe to the Minister of Social Development. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, the department is currently working on a funding model for the sector, and this also will deal with issues of abused women, and also it will address the issue of funding for various shelters. Very soon we'll be able to come to Parliament on presenting the policy on the shelter reforms. Thanks.
The Honorable Van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, that shelters that look after victims of abuse are forced to feed women and children on R9 a day. And they are also expected, they've only got money to pay full-time staff to the extent sometimes of about R600 a month, which means your subsidies are forcing shelters to violate labour legislation, and women and children are not getting the services that they deserve. But on the other hand, if you're a perpetrator of violence and you're in jail, then government spends R350 on you per day. So my question to you is, since becoming the Minister of Social Development, what have you done to ensure that no subsidy that goes to an NGO is below minimum wage, Honourable Minister? Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member, I've indicated that we're looking at the model or policy which will really address the issues of funding. We're very mindful that what has been given to various shelters is not adequate. I also want to say, Honourable Member, you also need to know or bear in mind that that happens within the current budget constraints, but we are mindful and working with other private sector companies in making sure that how can we augment. Really want to establish a model which will address the shortage in ensuring that we can move that. And when you talk about living wage, I don't know which living wage you're referring to, because where we are currently, we are talking about minimum wage, minimum wage. What we also want to say, Honourable Member, is that as you know that the issue of minimum wage has not been implemented. You know that it's a process, it is not conclusive. So I just want to say, as soon as that comes into play, we will be able to look at that and say, in what way can we comply with the matter of minimum wage?
The Honourable Raputi.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's not Honourable Raputi, it's Honourable Suledi. My button was not working, Speaker. Okay. Honourable Minister, the principle in the white paper for social welfare, together with the principle in the minimum standards of shelter for abused women, create an environment in which a developmental approach in service delivery could be a reality, whilst ensuring that transformation issues are constantly addressed with regard to the protection of women. What impact do these shelters have in rehabilitating and developing those that seek comfort from these shelters? Has there been an impact assessment on how shelters are ensuring that transformation issues are constantly addressed with regard to the protection of women? Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Issues of transformation are issues which we continue to engage with, but also on the issue of protection, it's the improvement and making sure that the shelters themselves continue to be safe for all victims. As you know, that part of that process include the non-disclosure of the various shelters which intends to protect women. The other thing, as you know, where we are also involved in making sure that the number of time or the periods the victims are staying in a particular shelter, but where they are able also to be empowered in making sure that when they go out, they are ready. Over and above that, it also recognizes that the challenge we have currently, it's that we need to look at how best can we ensure that some of those victims don't go back to the perpetrator. These are some of the challenges or policy issues which we need to address.
The Honourable Kubisa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, I just wanted to ask you as to whether within the shelters themselves, do you cater for any psychosocial assistance so as to deal with the issue of the belief, restoring faith to those women that have been abused? Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Indeed, majority of the shelters, especially those who are registered, we do have various counselors in the form of social workers, in the form of psychologists, in ensuring that they can take them through, but also bring confidence. And some of those people assist them in ensuring that if they intend to open a case against a perpetrator, they can get their confidence back and be assisted in making sure that the perpetrator does go into court. But I must also say some of the challenges which we need to look at them within the broader context of addressing violence against women in our society. Thank you.
The Honorable Reverend Mishwe.
Thank you, Speaker. Gender-based violence is a scourge that should be condemned, drastically reduced, and ultimately eradicated from society. It is unfortunate to hear about women who are turned away from domestic shelters for abused women because the capacity of those shelters is overstretched. While the department is looking for more funds for these overstretched shelters, has the minister and the department considered the fact that burden on these shelters could be reduced if there were more counseling centers in our communities that offered an opportunity for early crisis intervention for women in abusive relationships? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. We might not have sufficient, Honorable Member, shelters or places where women can go to as daytime services, but there are such places where women can go and go back home. For instance, if you talk about POA, it offers that service where people can go and be assisted overcoming trauma and be counseled during the day, even if they are not sufficient, but you do have such shelters. But we also believe that it's not sufficient to have the daytime shelters. We also need to look at to what extent can we create a sustainable mechanisms which will ensure that women don't go back to the abusers or victims don't go back to their abusers, because that's one of the biggest challenges which we are still facing currently. Thank you, Chair.
We now come to question number 361 that has been asked by the Honorable Kubisa to the Minister of Higher Education. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Kubisa. The reply is that there are 35,409 students who have been confirmed as eligible for NSFAS bursary awards, and they've not signed their bursary agreements. And then we have around 39,160 students who have not received their funding due to a number of administrative challenges. These are being resolved on a daily basis. We're able to process around 12,000 daily, is indicated by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme Administrator, and all the system issues, particularly concerned with information technology, harmonization between the scheme and institutions. These are being addressed. So I believe this problem will be resolved, and we have had an increase in the number of students receiving their funding.
The Honorable Kubisa.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. With the interventions that have been made, Honorable Minister, and understand there have been a lot of challenges with regard to NSFAS. Now that there are issues at the moment, do you think that these issues will have no impact or impact on the registration for next year? As we know that when the year begins, there are always a plethora of challenges with regard to NSFAS. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Buthelezi. Oh, Honorable Minister, sorry.
I thought there was a new Minister of Higher Education, Speaker.
We're preempting the President.
Well, we are hoping, Honorable Kubisa, that as we improve the systems and process the applicants more efficiently, that we won't experience the problems that we had this year. These are legacy issues emanating from 2016, 17, and then 18 was really quite a bad year where we have intervened. The number of students who've received allowances in the past 3 months is actually phenomenal, and I'm really quite startled at how many had not been properly processed. But what we've done, even with the new applications process, is ensured that we get out to institutions. We also have been going to schools. We have youth financial aid scheme peer ambassadors who we send out with information to schools. We're using local libraries as well as to song centers and other municipal facilities in order to reach as many young people as possible. We've also been meeting with all the student organizations across all the campuses in order to secure their support in ensuring that young people have the requisite information. And in terms of first-time applicants, in comparison to the past 3 years, in this year, due to that proactive set of measures, we have the highest number of first-time applicants that we've ever recorded.
The Honorable Buthelezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, the question posed speaks to the administrative challenges faced by the department, as the Minister herself has alluded to. My question is, what has the Minister done in trying to work together with the Department of Social Development or coordinate these two departments? Because most of these students who are struggling have been beneficiaries of the grant through the Department of Social Development. Has the Minister considered to mobilize, to harmonize these two departments to make sure that the administrative side of the application is taken care of through the information that is already there in the Department of Social Development? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Speaker, if I understand the question properly, Honorable Buthelezi, if an applicant is a recipient of one of the grants through social development, they're treated almost as an automatic beneficiary upon confirmation of registration. So it's treated rather differently from an applicant who is not in that beneficiary category. In terms of how we've tried to address the failings, the fact of an administrative intervention and the appointment of an administrator is a very direct intervention into redressing the problems we've identified. In addition, beyond an administrator, for each of the areas in which we identified inadequacy, we have brought in appropriate capacity to address those inadequacies. So for example, a big issue was systems integration. And there you have to have really competent program designers. So we've brought in IT specialists. You also had very poor human resource practices, so we've addressed that aspect. So in each category where we felt the institution was failing, we have brought in individuals who are able to address those problems, and I think the large number of awards being processed successfully indicates that progress has been made. And every step of the way, we work closely with institutions, which was always the major missing gap in the previous practices. Thank you.
The Honorable Bozoli.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, it's concerning that it's both good and bad that there are more applications this year than there have ever been before. find that there are more applications. I presume that's because funding is available, but it can't be because places are available, because we know that our universities are full. And not only have more people applied, but what I understand is that the standards for getting a bachelor pass have now been lowered, so more students will be eligible. So given that more and more people have applied, NSFAS already has been struggling with the existing number of students, and there's no space in universities for large numbers of additional students. Do you foresee that there will be big protests at the beginning of next year about access to university places? Thank you.
The Honourable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Honourable Bozoli. Let me explain about the applications. What we had in the previous years was that you get a large number of applicants in the midst of the academic year. This time, what we've tried to do is encourage school leavers to apply early. And for the first time, we're recording a larger number in comparison to previous. So not in terms of the quantum who would attend higher education. I just needed to clarify that. So we're not anticipating that rush between February and April, which we've always had, and which has led to the kinds of system failures that gave rise to the problems we were confronted with. In terms of places, we will be utilizing enrollment planning. I am concerned about the need for us to expand the system, but I think we should do so judiciously with care, both to capacity of institutions as well as with attention to where South Africa actually wants to grow its skills base. So this is something that we are attending to, and I really think that it's, for me, a policy area that government needs to have much more discussion on, because we have to give more and more young people opportunity. And of course, you would know that my own preference is that we should strengthen the TVET sector, because you want to produce those trades and occupations, but you wish to improve the quality of the colleges so that you're training at a much higher end than we are doing at the of more young people in universities and far too few in the TVET sector. So this is a direction in which I hope our country would move, and in building more TVET college campuses, it's part of our intention to have a growth in that area. And I would hope that as the TVET colleges improve in quality and character, you then have a closer articulation with universities so that young people do not view TVET colleges as a cul-de-sac, but that they're able to then move on and acquire a university degree through mobility. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Chair.
The Honourable Ntlangwini.
Chair, sorry, can I just raise a point? The Minister didn't answer my question as to whether she foresees protests next year at the beginning of the year about access to university places.
Honourable Member, the Minister has answered your question. And I now proceed to Honourable Ntlangwini.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Minister, you cannot fix NSFAS because it is fundamentally flawed system that has long passed its sell-by date. Regardless of what you and your department aims to do, you won't be able to fix. NSFAS will continue being a stumbling block for students to study. Instead, Minister...
Are you going to ask a question? I see you are fast running out of time.
I'm planning to ask my question, Speaker. I must first do an introduction. Please be patient. The only way forward, Speaker, is fee-free education. Does government at any point stand to commit to implement fee-free education? Now, that is my question, Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable, the Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Firstly, Speaker, if you'd allow, to the Honourable Bozoli, the efforts we're making at interfacing with stakeholders are to preempt the very situation you describe. So I would hope if we're successful, as I think we will be, there will not be the protests that you hope for. And I'm not a fortune teller, but I'm working toward that. To the honorable member of the EFF, well, I hope, like the Honorable Lekota, you will eat your hat if we get NSFAS right, which I believe we will do. Could I say that I do not believe the institution has reached a sell-by date? I do think these matters can be fixed and that it can be an institution that would function more efficiently. We're working to ensure that. As to a fee-free higher education for young people whose parents earn less than 350,000 joint family income annually, the government of the African National Congress is already providing a bursary and thus free education for them. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 317 that has been asked by the Honorable S.P. Tsoreli to the Minister of Social Development. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The answer to question 317 is that, yes, currently SASSA and the South African Post Office have worked on a number of measures to improve the security situation when it comes to social grant payments. And part of that would be through the JCPS cluster, which would include various information sharing, also include the police for them to continue supporting this process. I must also say that one of the issues we're doing is that SASSA and SAPO continue to be represented at the NATJOC, which tends to analyze and look at the situation and in what best way can the payments be protected. Thank you, Chair.
The Honorable Tsoreli.
Ha ke lebohe mohlomphehi ka tlhakisetso ya hao e totobetseng. Jwale potso ya ka ho wena e re, what has been the impact of the intervention of government security cluster and what are the lessons learned through this intervention? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Ke a leboga, Honorable Member. We have seen great progress when it comes to protection, but also the issue of pay points where police continue to be visible during the pay days. We've also seen lesser cash heists when it comes to money or payments for social grant. And where we are, there's a huge reduction when it comes to the various heists which are related to payment of social grant in our country. Thank you.
The Honorable Van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Speaker. To the Minister of Social Development. Minister, on this issue of SASSA and SAPO, there's 41 days till the end of the year, but 500,000 recipients, grant recipients who have not switched over to the new card. So my question to you is, what interventions do you have in place with SAPO to ensure that all these grant recipients are switched over to the new card before the cut-off date? And failing which, what interventions do you have in place to make sure that every grant recipient is paid on the 1st of January 2019 so that there's not another grant crisis?
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Van der Merwe, I want to assure you, come the 1st of January 2019, there's not going to be any crisis. And if you look at the past 6 or 7 months, when we started doing the migration and the transition, there was no crisis. So I want to assure you, come 1st of January, there'll be no crisis in 2019. We've put mechanisms in place in making sure that all the members who are still outstanding, by end of December, they have all been migrated, not only to the post office. I need to clarify that. Some will have gone to their chosen institutions or bank where they've decided that they are grants or social grants must be paid to. So there are various mechanisms in making sure that we're not only looking at the transfer to the post office, but we're also dealing with the issue of individual choosing their own monies, where do they want that money to be paid to. Linked to that, which I want to indicate, is that part of what was agreed is that people have the beneficiaries have the right to fill Annexure C, which will indicate their choices before the end of January. So we have mechanisms in place so that we don't find ourselves taking people to where they don't want. So we give them an option. Thank you.
The Honorable Mavunda.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Neali. Na kensa Speaker, manana Speaker. Xivutiso xa me xo landzelerisa lexi nga vutisa hi muchaviseki Kubisa eka Minister wa Higher Education. Now, my follow question is, Honorable Minister, through your office, terms of reference were set out to structure the work of the administrator of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Please share with the nation the progress that has been made thus far by the administrator and his team to address and resolve the immediate challenges related to things, closing out the 2017 academic year and processing of the 2019 applications, which close at the end of November, and preparations for the 2019 registration period. Thanks.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the member missed the point. We are fixing it.
Who are you talking to?
I'm addressing you. That the member who was speaking, it was not this time, it's somebody else. Let's just ignore that question for now.
Order, Deputy Speaker. Order, Deputy Speaker.
Yeah, I'll do that, yeah, okay.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
What's your point of order?
That was a new question, Deputy Speaker, but I have a question for the Minister. Can I ask, because since I was on the list, I think that member asked on another question. Can I ask, since I was on the list, my question, because we haven't exhausted the number of questions that needs to be asked to the Minister.
Give me advice. Is it okay? Okay. No. The next one is, the next person is Honorable Shalembe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, as you know, that these paying points are within where the communities are living. Now, are there any attempt that has been made in your department to engage the community policing forum who are residing in the vicinity of those paying points? If not, don't you see a need to make arrangement with the SAPS ministry with the intention to engage with the community policing forums?
Minister?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. When it comes to engaging communities, before we could even pay or start with a new transition period, we've engaged and visited various communities, not just community police forums, because we believe that the issue of pay points does not affect police forums, it affects communities and various structures in different areas. Hence, we had made sure that various community structures do participate. Where you had traditional leaders, we engage with the traditional leaders in making sure that they understand what's going to go on with the new arrangement or the transition which we're having. When it comes to the various areas, every pay point, when we're doing the payments, we do it with the presence of the police, and we hope the communities around there will also participate, not necessarily the police forum, because we need everyone in that area. When we start our payment from the beginning of the month, during the pay days, the communities are sensitized and they can also be aware that the beneficiaries in their areas will be paid on those days. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, physical security is one thing, but what is your department's plans to combat grant beneficiary fraud now that the biometric enrollment program has been suspended?
Minister.
Thank you very much. The question which I was dealing with was physical protection, which I think I've responded to. But to help you, the issue of biometrics, I don't understand when you say it has been suspended, because there's an arrangement and agreement that people need to be trained. So that's part of the work we are involved in going through with the labor movement in our sector.
The next question is 316, asked by Honorable Gina to the Minister of Basic Education. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, in relation to the readiness for the year 2019, we can report that on teacher provisioning, for instance, because these are done by provinces, they have already declared all the post establishments for 2019. They have issued establishment certificates, and provinces are currently processing and identifying the posts and educators in addition to the post establishment. They're identifying and declaring vacant posts. They are matching and placing educators. And the process in terms of our plans should be finalized by the 15th of December, 2018. On land admissions again, Deputy Speaker, the process also begins very early. It starts in April, started in April, and we can report that except for Gauteng and the Western Cape, provinces are almost done with admissions, and the reason why Gauteng and Western Cape are lagging behind is because they are oversubscribed, and both provinces are currently cleaning their data to remove duplicate applications. They are finding also alternative places for learners which they can't place in areas where parents would have chosen. So the challenges only remain currently in Gauteng and the Western Cape because of the urban migration to those two provinces. In terms of learning support materials, again, Chair, we can report that the process started as early as April. We've met repeatedly with provinces. We can report that we met with provinces on the 14th of May to check if they've placed orders. We visited them again in July, and the last visits were in September, and we did receive reports where there were challenges, and we've been interacting with those provinces, interacting with their accounting officers, and we are confident that all provinces would have placed the necessary orders. And again, in terms of the plan, all of them have committed that by the 30th of November, they would have done or received all the necessary deliveries where they can receive them. But in schools where there are no storages, those books can only be delivered in January. Thank you very much.
Honorable Nomalungelo, Sihlalo weCommittee.
Ngibonge Sekela Somlomo. Sekela Somlomo, ngibonge nempendulo kuNgqongqoshe. Kodwa ke sihlale sisho ukuthi mesibheke ezemfundo iLTSM incwadi nenokubhala ikona okubaleke kakhulu, yikho lo mbuzo ubalekile. Ngicela ukubuza ke Ngqongqoshe ukuthi njengomnyaka kwazwelonke kwezemfundo, yini isiqiniseko enisenzayo ukuthi uma sesibheke kuzo zonke izifundazwe mesikhuluma ngeinsiza kufunda nokufundisa,
nenza kanjani ukuthi ngempela niqikelele ngaphandle kwemibiko efikayo etafuleni lakho ngqongqoshe kodwa nidlale leyo ndima yokuthi nenze sure ukuthi zonke izifundazwe ziyayithola izinsiza futhi sibheke kuwo wonke ama sections esinawo section 20 and 21 ukuze naleyo imibiko efikayo kuwena ngqongqoshe kodwa ube wazi ukuthi ngempela sonke isikole izinsiza kufunda ifinyelele kuzo. Ngiyabonga.
Minister.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Njengoba sengichilo lungelo elihloniphekayo ukuthi ukuthengwa kwencwadi umsebenzi wama-province. Osikwenzayo thina ukulandelela sibonthi ngempela bawenzile lo msebenzi. So njengoba ngisho nje sile ngo-April kuyobonthi bafakile nama-orders. Then we're satisfied that babafakile ama-orders. Saphinde saya ngoJuly, saya ngoSeptember. NgoSeptember ngithola i-report engithi for instance i-province yaseMpumalanga ayibanga nemali enele yokuthenga incwadi. Kwafanele sixhumane ne-province no-premier, sixhumane no-CFO ukuthi alekelele i-province ikwazi ukuthenga. Othina sikwenze su-National Department siye sayenza i-50 points plan engayishare nawe ebonisa ukuthi ngokwamandla ethu thina siphelele kuphi. Kodwa okudlula lapho ngaphandle kokuyenza i-framework kwenza i-policy ukumonitora izandla zami zibophekile ngoba ngempela incwadi zithengwa ngama-province imali sema-provincini nakuma-sections goes ama-section 20 schools ngokomthetho imali siyinika lezo zikolo kube yizo efanele zizithengele incwadi. So into esingayenza nje ukumonitora mabengathenganga sikhalisane nabo ukuthi abathenganga kodwa kahle ngokomthetho imali ayikho kithi ezandleni zethu. Asikwazi ukuqiniseka ukuthi ngempela ngazi incwadi zithengiwe ngaphandle kokuthi sidepende kumbiko basinika wona. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you. Honorable Ngwezi.
Ngiyabonga Sekela Somlomo. Ngqongqoshe ohloniphekile siyabonga for impendulo osinikeza yona. Ngicela ukubuza ukuthi njengoba sihlelela unyaka ozayo sibheka udaba lokunikezela kothisha ezikoleni. Ungqongqoshe unalo yini ulwazi oluphelele lwendlela okuqashwa ngayo othisha ezikoleni kuwo wonke nje ama-provinces ngoba kwamanye ama-provinces ngqongqoshe othisha kwenziwa lokho kuthiwa i-placement. Kwamanye ama-provinces kwenziwa nje i-recruitment process ekahle ku-apply baye kuma-interviews and so on. Kodwa kwezinye indawo akwenziwa lokho. And lokho ku-disadvantage abanye okungenza ukuthi kube babe yingxenye yama-interviews nokunye. Nokuthi sikubuka lokho ukuthi ungazathi ku-undermine ama-school managers nama-governing bodies in the process of recruitment ye-PL1 especially because kwi-process yama-HODs, deputy principals and principals, governing bodies and school managers they are part of. But PL1, they are either deployed or placed. Thank you very much.
Isikhathi sakusiphelile. Ngicela ukuthi singachazi kabanzi. Sibuza umbuzo ucace ube wodwa futhi ingabi mningi. Njengoba sitshelwa ilezi zinto esivumelene nazo. Minister?
No, thank you, Chair. Ama-province ahlukene anendlela ezihlukene abazisebenzisayo zoku-appointa ikakhulu ku-PL1. Njengoba ngishilo nje kulombiko ukuthi masiyenza after si-declare ama-post sizoqala i-priority izoqala ngokumuva otishara abakhona because akululanga ukuthi sivumele ama-SGB aqashe sinabantu abaphakathi kwi-system abaseyikolweni ezithize fanele sibamuve baye kwindawo oqala sibe sure ukuthi la besinabo abakwi ngizokhuluma ngeSuthu manje laba aba-additional to the post siyabathatha sibaplace eqala sibe sure ukuthi bathole indawo kube ngona sivumela-ke ukuthi o-principal nobantu basebenzise indlela ezihlukene zokurecruiter. So the priority really is already in teachers who are in addition to the staff establishment to move them. So it will not be fair for governing bodies to expect us to employ other people whilst we have additional people in the system which we are going to be paying in any case. And that's what has been creating problems for us. So Kuma PL1 will deal with it differently to make sure that we really use all the materials that we have in the system. Unless, yeah.
Thank you. Before we move to the next person on my list, honorable members, please join me in welcoming an acknowledgement to the participants for the Africa Summit that's going to be held at the Royal House of Mandela, Mveso Komkhulu. And this is the following. President of the Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Roger Nkodo-Dang from Cameroon, they are sitting there. His Excellency Jatri Mohamed Abdallah, Speaker of the Parliament of Western Sahara. His Excellency the Riparian Ndikurio, President of the Senate of Burundi. His Excellency Abdurrahmane Zakaria, spokesperson of His Excellency President Issoufou of Niger. Honorable Anicet Niyongabo, Vice President of the Senate of Burundi. Honorable Barbara Rodzi, MP of the Pan-African Parliament, delegate from Zimbabwe. Honorable Frey Nkumu Lungula, MP, DRC. Honorable Karidia Zongo Yanogo, MP of Burkina Faso. Member of Parliament from Zambia, Honorable Anthony Mumba, a PAP delegate. And His Excellency Radi Sigata Bachi, Ambassador of the Western Sahara. You are welcome, honorable members and esteemed guests. It's your turn, Honorable Boshoff, for a supplementary question.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, you have today assured this House and all our viewers that you and your department are more than ready for the 2019 school year, bar the learner admissions. Minister, as part of the annual reporting for 2017-18, the Department of Education in Mpumalanga said only 50% of learners completed their yearly curriculum. The Auditor General, however, says that the figure is actually only 33%. Even if we were to believe the provincial department, how will you and your department ensure and follow up that learners are ready for the coming school year if half haven't even finished the previous year's curriculum? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Chair, I regret to say the questions were specific. They were about LTSM, about teacher movement. They were also about, there were three of them. So if she wants questions about curriculum coverage, I don't have difficulty.
On a point of order,
if the member has...
Deputy Speaker.
No.
Let me apologize.
The Speaker is speaking. You will keep quiet until she finishes.
On a point of order.
The Minister is speaking. Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
So if the honorable member wants me to give her information about curriculum coverage, it's a different exercise. I can prepare and bring her the answers, but she can't ask me things that I have not been asked, I have not prepared on. So on the curriculum coverage, we have information, but I was not required to bring it here. So that's not in the question.
Okay.
On a point of order, Speaker.
What's the point of order?
We are speaking about the LTSM, Honourable Minister, and it's because in Mpumalanga we're not given textbooks. That is why more than half of them could not complete their curriculum. So please, could you answer the question?
Honorable Minister. Wait.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Let the Honorable Minister respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, curriculum coverage and textbooks are different issues. The question was about teacher provisioning, learner admissions, and LTSM. So if she has information about lack of curriculum coverage, which is not necessarily textbooks, she must answer that question as honestly as possible. So she's being disingenuous by asking me about curriculum coverage and say it's textbooks. Those two things are unrelated, Chair.
Okay. All right. Honorable Mente.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, buka mina manje bayeke laba baza nama-new question. Minister, the placement of learners in school is a problem every year. Let us agree. And because there is a simple not enough teachers at school. But my question to you is not a new question. If you don't have an answer, please come back to me in a form of a writing. In a response to a question for a written reply, your department revealed that there are 413,000 learners with special needs who cannot be given the education they need by your department, and that there is a backlog of 1,380 special schools. How did we get to this point, Minister? And does the department have any plans to address this shocking backlog? Thank you.
Minister.
Honorable Member, le information okhuluma yiyo lesinayo nathi oyithole kithi njalo nje njengoba uyicacisa, so akho nto nje engakutshela yona because ubamba injalo. Inkinga esinayo manje ngama special schools, Honorable Member, which is honestly a big problem. It's skills shortage that we of teachers who have specialized skills to deal, especially ngama learning abilities are severe. I'm autistic, so we have very few people who have been trained in those areas to be able to help us with that. So you're quite correct. So I'm saying all the things you're saying are true, and what we are doing, and Treasury has given us, because the other problem was resources. They have given us money for children with severe learning disabilities, and we're working very hard with the provinces to make sure that we can address the backlog. Yabong.
Thank you. The next question is 343, asked by Honorable Basson to the Minister of Water and Sanitation. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Basson, thank you very much for the question. Yes, we issued one directive on the 20th of September and two notices. One on the 20th of September, the other one on the 5th of November. The municipality also, we assisted the municipality financially to repair at least 3 of the pumps, including 2 in the Sibukeng wastewater treatment works. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Basson.
Thank you for your answer, Minister. Minister, your department's 2014 Green Drop report stated that the country's water infrastructure is on high risk. This report indicated that 84% of our wastewater treatment plants are in high risk, medium risk, as well as critical risk. Minister, this implies that a shocking 4,200 million litres of sewer are illegally discharged into our river system, 82% of our river systems, like the Vaal River. Minister, what urgent measures are you taking as a newly appointed minister to protect our water resources against malfunctioning infrastructure under municipal control? Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. One of the things we have done already, if we take Mfuleni or Sibukeng as it is the largest wastewater treatment works. Now, what we have done there, we focused on that. We are more than 93% now constructing one of 2 major expansion capacities for sewer cleaning, let's put it, purification, let's put it that way. So we in the next financial year, we'll do the second, which is the last one. These are huge plants that we are constructing there already. And therefore, we think, because that's the main polluter at the moment, and we think that the second thing that we need to do, and we are working together with the district municipality, with the province in this, is to ensure that all 44 pumps or pump stations have been repaired. That project has already started as well. We think that by the end of this calendar year, we would have completed about half of the 44 that we've started with at the moment. It's going to cost us 141 million rands. Therefore, it's part of what we're trying to do to try and organize and rearrange our finances to make sure that we prioritize that. And also, you may have heard that the Minister of Finance also mentioned that the Defence Force will be invited to assist in terms of repairing those pump stations. We think that as well will add to the efforts that we put together with the municipality. Thank you very much, Mr.
Nkosi Qebekhulu.
Thokoze sekela somlomo. Mhlonishwa akusiyona yodwa indle engcolisa imfula yethu ukuba sibe namanzi aphephile empilweni yabantu bonkana. Umbuzo wami mhlonishwa uncike ekuthenini ukusebenzisana kwakho nomhlonishwa ungqongqoshe wezohulumeni basemakhaya nendaba zomdabu odabeni lwemkhandlu ehluleka ukumelela ama-bylaws ayo iyekelele omakhenikha bakhandele iy'moto kuma-pavements bechitha oyela lapho kugobhozele kuma-drainages kone imvelo yethu kubulale ney'nhlanzi uqobo emanzini. Iqhaza lakho mhlonishwa iliphi kulolu daba ukubona ukuthi siyavikeleka ngempela isisekelo esihle okungamanzi ayisekelo sempilo kuthina sonke ngathokoza.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Member. The enforcement of the user pays, or the polluter pays rather, principle is what in fact is lacking. That also happens exactly the same way with industry, because industry also pollutes, much as we are talking about communities that are polluting through sewer, but industries do the same. So part of what we were doing, working with the sector, and we agreed with the sector on the 10th of November that those who have got, and there are quite a number of them who attended there, who have got innovations and technologies that could assist us to track, particularly tracking is the key here, that we can track where these things are happening and help municipalities, because that's their responsibilities of ensuring that those things do not happen at that level. So it's a catch-22 situation for us, because it is also a model, a delivery model problem that we don't have full control over. But we have come together. We've already been to provinces, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, to try and get together. We're going to all the provinces soon, so that we work together with the other two spheres and complete the cycle, the cycle of finding solutions to this problem, with the help of the sector, with their innovations and technologies. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Mguni.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, it is envisaged that water shall be scarce by 2030 if no measures are taken to control. What are the lasting measures that will be implemented to ensure that our rivers are clean and protected from pollution, including the measures on the proposal of declaring the bulk water infrastructure resources as a national key point? Thank you very much.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Member. Water harvesting. This is one of the things that we have on our agenda. Water harvesting, because of that question, particularly because we need to mitigate the climate change impact on water availability. So we think that's part of it, but underground water also. It's because one of the things that we found out at the interactive session was that sand rivers and sand dams are a very, very quick win in terms of accessing clean water from underground. And therefore, we have started working on that. 2 days ago, I was in Johannesburg with a team from Limpopo, because that's what we want to move into already in the next 14 days, to go to Kyani and try to ensure that those 154 boreholes, for example, will start functioning soon, so that we can draw water. We want to use solar, energy on that. So all of these are part of the way of mitigating this challenge that we're faced with. So that's what at the moment we are doing. We hope it will bear fruit, because we have these people who, as you, fortunately you saw, we went together through the 50 stands of stalls of people who said, these are the technologies. We want to use those technologies to help ourselves. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I got excited.
EFF, there is, oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, kunini kodwa ukhuluma ngale nkinga? Na izolo bukhuluma ngayo, na last week bukhuluma ngayo, was promised amasosha every day. Kodwa ke Minister, ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi the fact of the matter is that companies, as much as to be blamed, and the South African Human Rights Commission nayo has confirmed this fact. So why are you not forcing companies that profit from the polluting of our rivers and environment to pay for the cleanup of the Var River? Are you afraid of them? Thank you.
Honorable Minister. Colonel Mkwinti.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. No, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Member, it's not a question of being afraid. It's a question of working together with people. And I said earlier on when I was responding to that question, that the weakness in the department, which we are busy correcting now, is not to enforce the user pays principle. And therefore, this is what we're going to do. Why we brought together those who have got technologies and innovations, capability, etc. We put now working groups across, and then we had CSIR and a Water Resources Commission as heads of these technical teams, so that we can identify these and take action immediately. So we're not afraid at all. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is 304, asked by Honorable BP Mabi to the Minister of Human Settlements. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Comrade JJ. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The department has not conducted evaluations and assessment of impact of all its programs as yet. It has to date undertaken evaluations on the social rental housing program, the integrated residential development program, the urban settlement development grant, a baseline assessment of the upgrading of informal settlements program, as well as an evaluation on asset creation. A further set of evaluations are intended to be undertaken on the balance of prioritized programs and the impact of set-asides. FLIPs, as well as evaluations of the department's strategic plan, will be considered. Notwithstanding the fact that the department has not undertaken evaluations and assessments on the programs indicated, it is to be noted that various research studies and empirical data demonstrate that directed and prioritized targeting of funding for marginalized sectors has positive socio-economic impact. The evidence with regards to the positive and exponential socio-economic impact of targeted funding to women, youth, persons with disabilities is clear and undisputed. The evaluations conducted on the other programs provided the policy, research, and analytical basis for the introduction of the set-asides aimed at achieving positive outcomes to society. This includes the positive impact on not only women, but girl children and youth, as far as improving rates in education and employment. The positive evaluation outcomes related to the Integrated Residential Development Program supports the fact that FLIS program is key component as far as ensuring that households earning greater than 3,501 to 22,000 able to access adequate housing and thereby also improve and increase their asset base. FLIS must be seen within the overall strategic outcome of government post-1994, to increase and grow the percentage of black middle-income households through various programs. And these include socio-economic infrastructure provision, education, health, economic and financial incentives. Lastly, as part of the improvement plan for poor performance of the FLISP, the department has undertaken initiatives, including those with the government employees housing scheme and finance service sector, to improve and to grow the take-up accessibility of FLISP. Thank you, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker. Sorry.
You see what the poison you are throwing in the house? There's one of these whips here who's throwing this poison around here. Honorable Mabi? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm told Honorable Kadibeng is taking charge of the question. Where is she?
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. And thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for your elaborate answer. However, Deputy Minister, has there been any challenges in the implementation of FLIPS and 30% set aside for those designated groups, youth, women, people living with disability? If so, what are those challenges and how are they being addressed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable
Minister,
Member.
Deputy Minister.
Yes, we had challenges as far as 30% set aside, but those challenges now have been resolved because Treasury has agreed that our 30% set aside in human settlements can be in DORA. So we're excited about that. And we want provinces to set aside part of their grants, 30%, for designated groups in terms of 30% set aside, including national. So this is exciting for women and the youth in particular. And when it comes to FLISP, which is Financial Linked Individual Subsidy Program, this program has always been linked to projects. We are saying now it's not only going to be confined to projects, but also it will be brought to provinces, particularly to the banks, so that in terms of National Finance Housing Corporation, it will link the individual with NHFC. So an individual person who earns between 3,501 and 22,000 can go to the bank and try and find that subsidy. And the bank itself will contact NHFC, National Housing Finance Corporation, so that they are able to grant the individual the concerned subsidy.
Honorable Stole.
Asibonge mhlonishwa Sekela Somlomo. Sekela Ngqongqoshe ifrisk isinesikhathi esiningi ikhona kodwa nje engicela ukubuza ukuthi ngoba ungqongqoshe uthi i-evaluation akenziwe ukuthi banayo yini uhlelo lokuthi ama provinces enza kanjani ukuthi ifrisk ikwazi ukuphumelela nokuthi omasipala bayakwazi ukuxhumana nabo ukuthi nabo babe engxenye yokuthi ifrisk ikwazi ukuphumelelisa nanokuthi ama provincial strategy plan ngabe ikhona indlela enomonitor ngawo wona ukuthi akwazi ukubonakala ukuthi imphumela yakho iyaphila. Ngiyathokoza.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Ndiyavumelana nawe ukuba iflips kudala ikhona, but the issue was the issue of rolling it out. That is why we are saying that it's no longer going to be linked only in a particular project of a housing somewhere in a province. It's going to be centralized. It's going to be, a person can walk in the bank and assess the flips as long as the person qualifies under the criteria which is we're talking about. The problem that we had with flips in particular was the management fees, because the money that we allocate for flips, provinces do not have money to manage the process of flips financially. So it's like an unfunded mandate. So that is why we are saying that National Housing Finance Corporation, which is a housing bank of human settlements, would be in a position to link the banks with the individuals. So we are rolling it out, we're giving more people access to flips than we did before. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Baja. Is Baja, Barra, or Baja? Baja.
Gubaha.
I sengizwile baba, sengizwile, sengishilo.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your response. But I think that as we understand that FLISP is meant to address the gap between those who can't access RDP houses and those who don't qualify for bonds through the banks. However, this program has failed dismally to address that question. Now, what I would want to know from you, Deputy Minister, is what steps and what mechanisms are in place to make sure that this delivers to the many thousands, especially of some of the civil servants who are working for the government but can't qualify for any of that program. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I wouldn't agree with you when you say it has failed dismally. I would say it had teething problems. And this is what the department is addressing as we speak. One of those is to include not only FLISP, is to include the government housing scheme as part of this package. So that at the end of the day, more people are able to access this kind of financial support from government. But also that provinces must prioritize this group of people who are civil servants and the people who earn above 3,001 because they cannot qualify in terms of our subsidy. But it is this category. But what we want people also to understand, that when you go to the bank, it is important and understand that it is about the assessment of the individual before the bank. It's not automatic that you're going to get the money, but all due diligence needs to be done. So at the end of the day, the one who qualifies is able to access the government support. Thank you.
Thank you. EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minister, the finance-linked individual subsidy program is not working. RDP houses are bad quality, and the housing waiting list is over 3 million. To sum it up, your department is failing to provide the people of South Africa housing. But lack of housing is not a problem unique to South Africa. It has been a problem across the world. And many countries have been able to house their people with state housing. Two examples of this are Rwanda and Singapore, who have excellent example of state housing. Has your department looked at the state housing models of these countries, and what lesson can be learned? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Would love the Honorable Member to familiarize himself with what's happening in Parliament. The very same Committee of Parliament, which oversees us, has visited Singapore, and they have the information. But also, it's not right to compare oranges and apples. South Africa has a different scenario and different issues that need to be addressed. So for us to grab here and there, it's not going to help us. Thank you.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
What's your point of order?
Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Minister must not mislead this House. We are saying that we need to look into other countries like Singapore. It is up to the ANC government to make sure that they house our people like they have done in Singapore. It's only a political will, that's it. And ANC government does not want to house our people.
Can you just take your seat and accept what you got by way of an answer? The next question is 297. Asked by Honorable C.C. September to the Minister of Higher Education and Training. Yes, what are you stating, Honourable Member?
On a point of order, Chair.
Yes.
With due respect, the Deputy Minister didn't answer or attempt to answer any question. So she must answer the question. If she does not have an answer, there's no problem. She must tell us that I will come back to you, honourable members. But she must not come here and try to grandstand because we are going to attend to you.
Honourable Member, please take your seat. Thank you very much. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to Honourable September, the chairperson, for the question. Various steps have been taken, Deputy Speaker, to ensure that more is done with respect to ensuring artisan recognition of prior learning. We have published guidelines late last year with respect to implementation of artisan recognition of prior learning. And from April this year, in this financial year, up to 31st March 2020, funding of 26.9 million will be provided to support implementation of the artisan recognition of prior learning program throughout the country. We've already begun to implement. For example, we've had provincial artisan development steering committees established, and these have been working with accredited trade test centers across the country. We're also providing support to accredited trade test centers, especially at our various TVET colleges. We've begun our work in the Western Cape, in the Eastern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Gauteng, and will be implementing in other provinces up until the end and beyond the funding period of 2020. We have a national campaign on artisan prior recognition of learning, implementation support, and capacity building, and are ensuring we work to create a larger number of accredited trade test centers which are familiar with implementation of RPL policy. Thank you very much, Deputy.
Thank you. Honorable Volmarans will take the supplementary question on behalf of Honorable September.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, noting that there is now an ongoing national campaign that you have just referred to on the implementation of ARPL, how will the artisan recognition of prior learning optimize opportunities for unemployed youth and eligible persons to acquire a progressive range of skills and employment or entrepreneurial opportunities? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker and Honorable Volmarans. I think that what implementation of the policy does, it ensures that a person's prior learning is recognized in the artisanal trade sectors, and once they've been confirmed as having acquired particular competencies in the particular trade or occupation, they are then able to proceed to an accredited trade test center where after assessment, they then receive a trade certificate and are able to proceed to either establish their own enterprise or indeed find employment as a recognized and qualified artisan. And so for persons who previously had these skills but didn't have a formal trade test qualification and therefore recognition as an artisan, they are able to get this, and there are many, many hundreds of people. For example, Deputy Speaker, in the current period, since the 1st of April, we've had 1,495 candidates coming forward to be assessed, and 600 plus were recommended and granted access to a trade test. These are people who've held the skills but never had the trade qualification, and so no recognition as an artisan. And now that we're providing for this, they are able to get that recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Bozoli.
Thank you, Chair. My advice from people in industry is that the country actually needs about 60,000 artisans per year. And we are at the moment producing 30,000, and then what amounts to really a handful of RPL artisans. What is your advice? What advice have you been given on how many artisans the economy actually needs? And is it somewhere around 60,000? And if so, What will you be doing to expand the number of artisans produced rather dramatically? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
I do not have in front of me definitive figures as to the number of artisans required at this moment in different sectors. However, I'm fully aware that we're not producing the number needed by industry, a range of sectors throughout the country. For example, I think we still tend to think of artisans in terms of the traditional trades and don't look sufficiently at new opportunities in information communication technology. So we may not do enough in the TVET colleges with respect to coding or software program development. And I think these are areas we need to see much more movement in. Even in terms of the manner in which we train people, we tend, I think, to have inadequate introduction to technologies that are used in various sectors. I noted in the dual system, for example, in Germany, that young people doing journalism would have access to old printing presses as well as new computer-aided technologies. We need to move in that direction as well. Our National Development Plan says we must be producing at minimum 30,000 artisans per year by 2030. We have made interventions and are producing, as Honorable Bozoli is well aware, over 20,000 annually at present. Our investment in the centers of specialization in TVET colleges from next year will, I think, be a means of accelerating and catalyzing far larger numbers entering this field. And then, of course, recognizing prior learning for women and men who never had opportunities to acquire trade certificates vastly adds to the pool of competent artisans in the country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Kubisa.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Undoubtedly, Minister, it could be said that this really is a step in the right direction, because we have scores of our people, young men and women, who could be working somewhere or have started their own businesses, but they were without these competence certificates, which they direly need for them to stand on their own. I therefore believe also, Honourable Minister, that there is also a period attached to this with regard to them getting these certificates. Now, I wanted to ask, Minister, whether the policy does also encapsulate your department working with small business or economic development, so that if they are not employed, they could be able to be self-sufficient, stand on their own, be entrepreneurs at the same time. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Kubisa. One of the things that we've done, because really this is somewhat of a new domain for all of us, is having had the guidelines published, funding provided, and work beginning toward establishing accredited trade test centers, we also have established a recognition of prior learning reference group in the artisan domain, so that you have a pool of experts who can advise us as to what further steps we need to do in order to expand our capacity and ensure that we are addressing the significant number of persons who were treated as spanner boys or whatever the terms were in the past, in order to get them to a point where they are accredited. And of course, we work very closely with our colleagues in small business development, as well as with our colleagues in labor, because labor should support us with establishing the accredited centers, and we would work with economic development and all my colleagues. But the reference group has a diverse mix to it, and I think will provide very useful future policy advice. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Ntlangwini.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, your new requirements that candidates must compile a portfolio of evidence that includes a CV, any other certificate supporting documents of qualification, current and previous employment together with trade-related duties performed. This must have or is incredibly time consuming for people to go through this process. Have you considered any other alternative processes to ensure that the process is not so time consuming? I thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm sure the Honourable Ntlangwini of the EFF would agree that as we support generally adults or young adults who've not had opportunities for such registration and recognition, that it would be absolutely important that we ensure that as they get accredited, they are fully competent in the areas in which they're seeking accreditation, because in a number of these trades, individuals are working in very dangerous environments. There's machinery. Those who do hairdressing are working with chemicals that may be of great harm. So we have to ensure that we do insist on a certain basic level of competency. And remember, a lot of these people have been practicing in these areas and have a lot of historic information and data that they can bring to bear on assisting them in acquiring the accreditation. Where there is need for assistance, for example, in putting a portfolio together if one wants to go into the marketing domain, I think we would be able to then ask institutions to assist them. That's why the significant number of centers that we're accrediting are at our TVET colleges, where several support measures are available should help be required. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. We move to question 335, asked by Honorable Kanyile to the Minister of Social Development. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Whilst our efforts have generally been on poverty alleviation, targeting poor individuals and households, there has been a policy shift towards social investment with the aim of reducing people's dependency on social grant security, capacitating parents of child support grant recipients to function independently once they exit the social grant system. An example is Gauteng province, which is leading in example in this regard with a myriad of projects which among others include the following: production of school uniform by cooperatives, the welfare to work program, placement of young people into permanent jobs, training and skills development, and many others. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, the department's cooperatives have failed to empower grant beneficiaries over the years. What will the department do to ensure that the budget is set aside to establish successful cooperatives? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to extend to Honorable Kanyile to come with me to Gauteng so as to see cooperatives who are successful. Whilst one acknowledged there were those who have failed, but the ones I'm referring to are the ones which are working. We've tested them. They indeed contribute to young women in moving away from child grant. So I invite you to come with me when you've got time. We can visit Gauteng to see successful cooperatives. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable B.L. Abrahams.
Nkansi, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, thank you very much. How sustainable are these nutrition programs to eventually lead beneficiaries to be self-sustainable? And also, what methods do you have in monitoring and evaluating these programs to make sure that it is a success? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Abram. The way we are currently evaluating the programs, we measure them through making sure that how much they're getting, because as you know, we have the issue of means test when it comes to child grant, which requires about 4,400 to remove them from that. and the various trainings which have been conducted and the income they're earning, we use it as a measure to say they no longer, or they've got to exit the child grant. That is why Gauteng has been the case in point, which has really, really successfully moved young women away from being dependent on child grant, but also creating new entrepreneurs who are standing on themselves, who are able to take care through creating their own business opportunities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next follow-up question will come from Honorable Mente.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, because of the ANC and DA's total embrace of neoliberal economics, there will be no job creation until the EFF is in government. And the number of people reliant on social grants will only continue to grow. Honorable Minister, have you considered linking social grant payments to deliberate skills development processes to ensure that young parents' capacity to provide for themselves is developed? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Well, the first is that in your dreams, you are going to lead as EFF. In your dreams, yes.
House Chair.
Thank you.
I think the minister there.
Continue, Honorable Minister.
No, thanks, Chairperson. I just want to say where we are currently through the Department of Basic Education, if you follow where they're talking about second chance, where young people are going back to school. As social development, we're tapping into that program by ensuring that young women, as they get social grant or child grant, but they can also improve their lives by being skilled, by being educated in ensuring that later they can take care of themselves. That is why social grant, especially when it comes to child grant, it cannot be a permanent feature. Therefore, the ANC has no intention of making child grant a permanent feature of this government. We are going to skill and educate our young people after they had, by mistake, as we speak, we're doing it right now. And we are going to make sure it becomes successful. As you know, this government of the ANC will be there whilst you're dreaming. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Tebekulu.
Angixolise mphathihlalo ngitokoze ngephutha bengijahe umbuzo wami olandela lo mbuzo uphendula ungqongqoshe.
Okay. In that case, that was the last follow-up question on this question. I don't see her on this document. Ms. van der Merwe, you don't appear on this. Or you're going to take the...
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Honourable House Chairperson, thank you very much. Honourable Minister, just yesterday, the UCT's Child Institute revealed that 6 million children in South Africa are starving. 6 million children are living below the poverty line. As the Minister of tasked with looking after the most vulnerable in our society, looking after children, I'm sure this should keep you up at night. And so I'm asking, what urgent measures will you be putting in place to mitigate this disaster?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Honorable van der Merwe, as you know that we don't have 6 million of kids, we have 12,000 children who have access to child grant, registered, confirmed. Therefore, the study, as you know, some of the studies, they happen, but by the time they release their studies, you find that we've moved one step ahead. Whilst recognizing that we've got to look at that, the issue of child grant will continue. That's why we're linking it with the development of those young women, because mainly these are not old people, are young women. Yesterday, I went to Alexander Clinic. You saw lots of young girls who are below the age of 20 carrying babies. So if you don't create a future for those young girls by being educated, by being skilled, going through the TVET colleges, as Minister Pando was saying, it means their future is doomed. So the issue of skilling, educating them, giving them a skill for them to be self-sufficient becomes a critical point for all of us, because dependency on the grant, it's not going to be sustainable for them. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to question number 296, as asked by Honorable DJ Kabini to the Minister of Water and Sanitation. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, the idea of having this interactive session was to get to understand what is there, what technologies are there, what innovations are there that will assist us to develop programs that will be water saving to start with. So we got that. We got quite a number of those who presented themselves there. And we think that that's step number one. Step number two is to then deploy them, especially in rural areas, using particularly the dry sanitation or waterless or very little water use, etc. Because there's water scarcity, particularly in those areas. So, but we would need a lot of public interaction, so that we cannot impose those all of this to people. We need to engage them, and that's why then we have these working groups that we establish from those people who made presentations to make sure that when we meet with people, we already started that, by the way, in terms of bucket eradication. There was the Honorable Chief Whip called me over the weekend to say he was doing work and people don't have water, and I went there on Monday. Took one of those and with the Water Research Commission of the department, so that we can see how this thing works, so that we can use that at a massive scale rather, working together with municipalities and COCTA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kabini.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Thank you very much, Minister, for answering the question. Can I verify, Minister, what recommendation or resolution that surfaced from that meeting? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Chair, my apology, I didn't catch the question. I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
Honorable Kabini, do you mind to repeat your question?
No, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. My question is, what recommendation or resolution surfaced from that bucket eradication meeting?
Okay. Honorable Minister.
Yes, oh yeah, I understand now, Chair. No, that was not a bucket eradication meeting. It was a meeting on water and sanitation. In other words, bucket eradication was part of the work. I've just described that. Now, the resolution, therefore, is that we have working groups that are going to, that were put together, headed by CSIR and Water Research Commission. So those working groups are going to assist us design programs that are based on the presentations and submissions that were made, as well as I was saying, particularly in rural areas, we're looking at a waterless or systems that use very little water because of the scarcity of water in those areas. And therefore, the program now, as I said,
Order.
the program right now, we have started, as I said, Honorable Chair. Already we answered the call from the Chief Whip who was doing his work, and we went there because we want to find spaces where we can start, experimenting with all of this. But we can't impose that. Consultation is going to be the next one. On Monday, this couple of days ago, we were meeting with the same presenters about Kyani. So again, we're going there, we're going to consult people and say, this is what we have. It's a quick win, can we try it? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one is coming from Honorable Kabekulu.
Ngithokoze sihlalo. Mhlonishwa, cishe iminyaka ishumi kweve. Inkinga yokuqiqwa kwendle ngamabhakede ibe umthwalo kuhulumeni wethu. Ngifisa ke ukusho lokho okokuqala, umhlonishwa obe umongameli wezwe, umhlonishwa uMbeki, wayegcizela le ndaba ukuthi akwenza isiqiniseko ukuthi ayaphela amabhakede ukuthutha indle. Umuntu ke ufisa ke ukuzwa umhlonishwa ngokubuka komnyango, cishe iminyaka emingaki uma ubheka okuthi kufika wona bese kuphelile ukuthi kusekiswa amabhakede. Bese kwenye indawo ngithi eFree State elokishini basabasebenzisa amabhakede. Mhlonishwa ngicela ukuzwa ukuthi ngokubuka komnyango mhlawumbe uzawunqoba lenselelo esikhathini singakanani kusuka manje.
Mhlonishwa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, House Chair. One of the things we have decided to do is to utilize the internal capacity, the construction unit in the department, which has got a manufacturing plant in the Northern Cape to manufacture all the equipment that needs to be used to do the work. It employs more than, in fact, 2,936 workers. It's there, they're paid every month, but they're doing nothing. Those are the people who are going to activate now to do the work. But we also have designed the 30% set-aside model so that the people on the ground can also participate in the program. That's what we have developed now. There's Construction South, which has already started working here, Glen William. It's going to work in KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape, Construction North, Limpopo, and so on. So we have activated that. We've got that capacity. We're going to use it. It's going to be cheaper even. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Matthias in absentia.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that question. Minister, water is the most basic of human rights. The right to water is guaranteed in our Constitution. And without it, a human cannot live for more than a month. That is why the failures of this department are a violation of the Constitution. The collapse of the Kyani bulk water project are criminal. The project was started in 2014. Until today, it is still not complete. Will your department criminally pursue the individuals behind the collapse of the Kyani bulk water project? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
The answer is yes, Honorable House Chair. We have already signed 4 proclamations with the SIU on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. The last follow-up question will come from Honorable Hugo.
Ndiyabulela, Minister. Minister, sekugqithe iminyaka engamashumi amabini anesine abantu bethu isidima sabo sithotyiwe ngenxa yalamabhakede. Now I would like to find out, Minister, South Africa is amongst the best countries when it comes to innovation, especially when in the toilet sector. Will some of these technologies solve our bucket eradication program in the country? Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable House Chair, thank you, Honorable Hugo. The answer is yes. That is, actually, fortunately, I've done it before. Those who know the Eastern Cape, there's a place called Port St. John's. There's a village called Kaguba. I was housing MEC at the time in the Eastern Cape. I built a village, I provided a village there with dry sanitation. It is doable. So it can be done at scale. That's what I was saying earlier on, that We will use our internal capacity because we've got it to develop, to actually implement these programs at scale with the use of the innovators and technologies that we brought together on the 10th of November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We move on to question number 314, asked by Ms. Bilankulu to the Minister of Arts and Culture. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. For the past 20 years, there's been discussions and opinions on the possible name change of the place called Grahamstown. Perhaps, Chair, we ought to make a point here that this name has been named after one of the cruelest human beings who ever walked planet Earth, who killed people in that part of the country, children, women, and men alike, but destroyed their livestock, destroyed their property, everything. He believed in a motto that you need to maximize violence and terror to African people. That's the name which we are changing, which we have changed, as it were. Now, the process, Chair, is that in 2012, Makana local municipality had public engagements on the possible change of the name. It's only recently in 2015 that these discussions culminated in the official application form through the processes of South African geographic name change and the Minister of Culture. The matter was then escalated to the Eastern Cape Provincial Geographical Name Change Committee, who then with Makana local municipality undertook public participation with all the stakeholders. The public participation with stakeholders at these spheres of government resulted in proposed names of Kyani, Makana, Makhanda, and Ncele, not in order of preference. But in the final analysis, with all the consultation, it was agreed that it would be Makhanda Ncele, one of the warriors in that part of the country who fought against colonialism, ended up at Robben Island in 1819 and died when he tried to escape. But he left people with one thing, that I, Makhanda Ncele, I will come back. Ncele has come back. Thank you.
Sithokoze Mhlonishwa. Mhlonishwa Bilankulu.
Nakensa Mutsamwashtul. Honorable Minister, as a portfolio committee, we really appreciate the work that you are doing, more especially in honoring our Xhosa warrior, our philosopher, a prophet, and a military man. Honorable Minister, my question is, some of the main objectives that have been arising against the name change of Grahamstown to Makhanda were based on an argument that the money that goes into a geographical name changes could be put to better use elsewhere. How will the minister respond to this notion? Thank you.
Sithokoze.
Well, it comes from people who are insensitive, Honorable Member, who do not understand the pain people gone through over hundreds of years. And what we are saying now is that the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, in its preamble, talks to the issue of people who suffered for this freedom. But also the TRC spoke about symbolic reparation. And there are people, structures, and architecture by this government of individuals who are employed to do precisely this. This is one of the most important work of social cohesion. If we talk social cohesion in this country, we are not talking capitulation. We're talking about moving forward in reconciliation, but recognize where we come from, the past, and its pain.
Thank you. Honorable Khurwatboam, you may ask the follow-up question.
Honourable Minister, thank you for your response. In light of the public participation process involved in the geographic name changes, to what degree has the Minister responded or taken note of the objections and petitions lodged against the proposed name change? And also recognizing that we need to move away from our colonial past, but he who forgets his past is doomed not to reach his future. So to what degree has the Minister responded to the petitions and objections lodged?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I think we need to start by saying that the architectures and the proponents of both apartheid and colonialism, those who distinguish themselves as very brutal against our people, cannot occupy public spaces. And that we must make very clear. But also say that, Honourable Member, that we really followed processes. The whole process about this matter of Makanda area came to us in February. And at that time, it had gone through all the stages. But there were protests. We decided to delay that and take it back to the South African National Geographic Council around that time. When we pronounced ourselves in October, the 2nd of October, we were satisfied that we followed all the processes. Indeed, we did, and we are happy that that place is Makanda Ganglele now.
Thank you. Mchabise Kindlozi.
I was in Dlamini earlier, I'll be in Rosie now. Thank you, Chair. Minister, as South Africans, we will always be defeated as long as the tributes to those who colonized and dispossessed us stay standing. On this very parliament, we have statues of Queen Victoria, who dispossessed our people of the land, murdered them and exploited their labor to make her and her empire wealthy. Louis Botha as the first Prime Minister of the Union of South Africa. It was during his tenure that the Native Land Act, which condemned the black majority to only 7% of South Africa, was introduced. Instead of tearing down these statues, or instead of tearing these statues down, taxpayers' money is going towards maintaining them. Is it not time to tear these statues of these racist, barbaric criminals down?
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Well, firstly, Honourable Member, people must apply. It won't happen automatically. People must apply and follow the processes. Secondly,
Order, honourable members, you asked a question, let the Minister respond. Honourable Member, no, please.
There won't be sweeping statement about the statues in the country. Each and every statue would be looked into on its merit and come to the conclusion thereof. I'll make an example to you that it is the core principle of this government for this country to reconcile. And when we do that, we should juxtapose with what I said earlier on, that you would have proponents of colonialism, you will have proponents of apartheid who were leaders in that particular area. And those ones can never occupy the spaces. If you go today to the Union Building, you have the statue of Madiba, but you also have Herzog in that part. So it's not just a sweeping thing that we're not dealing with slogans here. We have to deal with understanding each and every stage which is there and deal with them in that way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
House Chair, sacela qale ngo Queen Victoria nje lo la
Thank you, honorable members. My list is exhausted. I will now go to question number 354 as asked by honorable members. I'm saying that it's exhausted because there were no names from other parties. So we continue to on question number 354 as asked by Honorable Tarabella Machesi to the Minister of Basic Education.
House Chair.
Yes, Honorable
Beg your
Ndlozi.
indulgence.
Yes.
Can we just take the opportunity of that last follow-up on this question of statues who are requesting? It's not bad to take that time and expound on this public discourse. While saying make a judgment, I mean, it's not wrong.
I hear you, but it is the practice that we don't repeat the same parties. So that's why if there was another party that was willing to do that, I would grant them. Honorable Minister of Basic Education, question number 354, as asked by Honorable Machesi.
No, thank you, Chair. Honorable Member, ka tlhompho le boikokobetso bo boholo, ha ke na karabo ya potso ya hao, hobane taba ya hore ke bana ba bakae ba sa fumanang dibuka, ha se mosebetsi kapa ke information e re collectang re le national. Mosebetsi wa rona re le lefapha la thuto national kore re etse qeto hore ho rekuwa dibuka dife, re shebe hore di rekwa neng, re be le bopaki ba hore di fihlile dikolong, ho ya pele hore ke mang ya di fumanang ho bana ba milione tse 12 re le lefapha la thuto hodimo a re kgone ka nka ho ba le information. So ka tlhompho ke a hloleha ke potso e tshwantse e lebiswe di-provinceng tseo hobane hodimo we don't collect that information.
Thank you, Minister. So can I allow Honorable Boshoff? Honorable Boshoff, I am told you will take charge of the question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Even though it is a provincial competency, Honourable Minister, the Auditor General disputed the figures with regard to textbooks given by the Mpumalanga Department of Education and says that 69% of Mpumalanga schools do not have sufficient textbooks. Minister, how can we rely on any of the statistics given by your department when they are always disputed? Minister, you have given us the assurance that you will follow up as to why textbooks were not delivered, but what we need to know now is when will you follow up, how will you follow up, and when is somebody going to be held to account? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Let me restate the question. The question wanted me to say how many students by the time they were writing exams had not received books. That was the question. The dispute that comes from the Auditor General around Mpumalanga, it's a different question that she has on her own, so I'm not going to argue about it. It's not what I was asked to answer. So my response was in relation to what I was asked. The question was, how many students had not received books by the time they write exams? And I explained, ka Sesotho hore ho tloha sekolong ho fihla baneng ha se information e rona re leng national re e bokellang ke yona karabo ya ka eo he.
On a point of order, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Boshoff.
If the Minister would just answer the question, she knows that Mpumalanga did not receive books. If this is the case, why can she not just admit that this province did not receive all their books?
Unfortunately, I cannot allow, that's a point of order, it's not another question. Honorable Ngwezi, the next question will come from you.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I hear the response you are giving, that the question you are being asked is the competence of the province. But I think it is also the duty of the minister to
to do some follow-ups. And what the honorable member there, Ms. Boshoff, is saying is actually correct, because the department has knowledge that, textbooks did not arrive on time in the province of Mpumalanga. And all I'm pleading with the minister is actually to do follow-ups on these matters, because we don't want them to occur in 2019, because they are problematic to our kids. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was a comment more than a question, a follow-up question. Honorable Mokoto.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, having noted your response, we all know the importance of LTSM in increasing student achievement and supporting learning and teaching. Having noted that, Honorable Minister, could you please appraise the nation on how the supply of free LTSM has transformed and positively impacted the education outcomes of the previously disadvantaged? Further, what innovative measures are in the pipeline to make sure that we reap the full potential of this crucial tool? Thank you.
As a reminder, let's remind one another that you can only ask one follow-up question. Honorable Minister.
No, Chair. The honorable member has stated quite clearly the values of LTSM, and we cannot overstate the importance in terms of correctness of information, independence of learners. So she stated quite correctly what the issues are. But then to be able to say what has been the impact is quite, you can even see from the results that we say this upward trend that we're experiencing in education is because of the interventions that we have put in the systems. We distribute more than 9 million workbooks nationally. That can't go unnoticed. We make sure that there are books, that every child has a book. We have all other methods because we know the valuable resource or a value of textbooks in education. So my answer is, see from the results that we're getting, that we're having an upward trend, and textbooks and supply of textbooks is one of the measures that we have put as this party, and we're yielding, we're reaping the results. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Matthias, again.
Thank you very much, House. Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, matriculants in this country in the rural areas and townships are often forced to share textbooks, one to an entire class, because of your department failure to procure and deliver textbooks. Tenders intended for the delivery of textbooks are eaten, and the children are left with no learning material. Have you ever considered capacitating your department so that it is able to produce, print, and distribute textbooks itself? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Chair, we have embarked on a number of programs to increase the state's capacity in terms of resourcing the state to provide textbooks. We've digitized textbooks so that they are accessible also through digitization. We're working with different companies, Mr. Mathieu, for instance, the Shuttleworth Foundation has produced high quality textbooks free for us to be able to provide quality textbooks for maths and science. The Sasol Inzalo Foundation has also employed experts to help us. So there is a program of producing state textbooks in order to ensure that we have enough supply of textbooks. So there are different methods that we're looking at, but including, because you can't exclude the private sector, they have capacity, they have long-term capacity that they've built over time, and I don't think it will be counterproductive to rule them out. But we are doing lots of work which we can share with the House on extending the capacity of the state to have state textbooks, as you correctly suggest and propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes a response to the question number 354. We now move to question 324, as asked by Mr. Chwaku to the Minister of Basic Education. Honorable Minister.
Yes, Chair. From the reports that we received from the province, yes, indeed, there are plans to renovate Matiti Secondary School. The school has been budgeted. The 15 classrooms are going to be, and the nutrition room are going to be renovated. It is in their 2019-2020 financial year, so there will be work will start in 2019 for the refurbishment of that school.
Thank you. Honorable Mkalipe will take charge of the question.
Yes, Minister, although we appreciate your answer, but the fact of the matter is that troubles at that school have been reported from 2014. Now is 2018, 4 years down the line. So what is a turnaround time for your department to resolve challenges of this nature brought to its attention? And why has it taken so long to resolve challenges at this school whereby the poorest of the poor are coming from? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Chair, I've responded around the Matiti to say this is what the province has planned to do. But what determines when schools are built by provinces, it depends on their resources in terms of their plans. We've repeated in this house that there are huge backlogs. So, and every province could tell you what the backlogs are, they're huge. So even if you could report this in 2014, but if it's not in the pipeline or there are resources or plans to have it in 2014, there won't be a turnaround in 2014. It's dependent on the provincial plans, on their resources, but also on the fact that they will not, in between, find that they have emergencies that they have to respond to, which have not been planned for. So there's always an attempt to respond as quick as possible, but sometimes there are circumstances beyond provincial governments to be able to respond timely on matters that have been reported to them. And we've always reported that we have a big challenge around infrastructure. We've not been shy about it. It's not as if we say we're perfect in that area, but provinces are doing all they can possibly do to respond and address to challenges that are confronting them.
Chairperson, I'm not satisfied by the answer from the minister. Minister, since you tried to answer
Thank you,
questions
Honorable
here,
Member.
you always tell us.
Honorable Mkalipi, please take your seat. Honorable Miso.
Thank you, House Chair. Mototlehi, a lefapha la gago le na le leano lengwe go netefatsa gore puso ya bogare ya lefapha la thuto e baya go tlhabololwa ga dikolo mo maemong a ntlha. Go netefatsa fa baithuti ba nna mo dikolong e ba kgontshang go ithuta ka botlalo. Ke tla heleletsa ka seane se se reng moseka phofu wa gabo ga a swe lentswe ebile ngwana o sa leng o swela tharing ke a leboga.
Minister.
Ke tla tlhalosa ke iphete hantsi gore mmuso constitution ena le province. Me every level ya mmuso ya province ina le mosebetsi o leng wa yona. Mosebetsi wa rona ke di norms and standards, ke monitoring, support and evaluation. Bontsi ba tšhelete ya lefapha la thuto bo ya di-provinceng ke mo mmereko o le teng ko di-provinceng. So ntho e nka lefa yona ke molaetsa o tlo gore di-province di bereka kana di fella kae. Otherwise, if you don't recognize the fact that there are provinces and they have responsibilities, then I think we have a problem. National has got its own responsibilities, and I've just said with the last question that provinces are doing as much as they can within the constraints that are confronting them. We're supporting them as much as possible, and we appreciate the importance of a conducive learning environment. That's why on an ongoing basis, we try with all stakeholders, even fundraise outside government to ensure that we have conducive learning environment. So it's not that we are unaware or insensitive to what the challenges are, but there are constraints which we understand are affecting provinces. So in provinces, corners in reality, if people are not.
Thank you. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I'm glad to hear that Mtiti High School will receive a budget to be renovated in 2019. But Minister, the MEC for Education in the Eastern Cape has reported that it cannot pay contractors building 37 schools because the National Department has not transferred the funds. I find this very strange because every time we query the slow pace of school construction, you and your department blame the contractors. Minister, what I would like to know from you is, who would you and your department like to blame in this instance? Thank you.
Thank you. Motlotlegi.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure of that report, that there are 44 schools. So she's got information which I don't have. So I don't know, these 44 schools she's talking about, which schools are those that were supposed to be only provinces? Let her give me the right information. I'll go and investigate what is this 44. But she can't just bring figures here and expect me to respond honestly and sincerely. I don't know about these 44 schools. Let her bring me the information.
On a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much. Minister, you were clearly not listening to my question. I spoke about 37 schools. I never mentioned 44. No, you can't
Thank
just
you,
cut a throat.
Honorable Boshoff. Thank you very much. Honorable Ngwezi.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, we know as the country that this month, the next month, December, there are provinces which are hotspots in terms of the storms. Now, can the Honorable Minister assure us that with schools that are going to be affected will immediately be assisted to make sure that the environment for teaching and learning is actually conducive? Because normally it takes a long time for schools to be renovated after the storms. We know each and every December there are provinces that are hotspots in terms of the storms. Thank you.
Honorable House Chair, I'm just to your right, immediate right. I'm just worried we've been very, very lenient, and I rise in terms of the rule about follow-up questions. We've been very lenient, and as a result, it's being abused, and our colleagues find themselves in awkward positions where they've got to answer questions that are completely new and cannot provide data. In the same manner, Chair, the original question being raised now for a follow-up had nothing to do with floods and disasters at all. Thank you.
Can I say it is the minister's prerogative to respond?
Chair, with due respect, can I just clarify and seek your advice also off the table? The rule I'm referring to is 142.6. Yeah.
I do understand. Usually we say it's the minister's prerogative to respond. Order, honorable members. Honorable members of the EFF, can you allow the minister to Honorable. Continue, Honorable Minister, if you want to respond to a new question or not.
And a question that asks me to predict what I don't know. We don't know where the storm is going to hit. And
Point
there
of
is
order,
no slash
Madam
fund
Speaker.
in government which waits for storms. But what I can assure the member...
Order, honorable members, I can't hear the minister.
That, for instance, the Treasury has approved budget for storm damages that were done last year. So you can't go to Treasury
Honorable
and
Minister,
go and
could you
ask...
please hold it? Honorable member.
Madam Chair, may I just address you in terms of Rule 146 sub-rule 6, 142 sub-rule 6. It says, a supplementary question must arise directly from an original question or an answer given thereto. And it may not contain...
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
No. Hey, wait.
You can't call an order while I'm still listening.
And it may not constitute a new question.
Yes.
Now, the question I want to raise with you, as the custodian of the rules, when you give a minister a prerogative to answer a question which does not arise from an original question, what does that mean?
Can I ask you to be patient, because this is the practice that we have been using during question time, and we can talk about that later on, not now in the House. Honorable Minister.
So, sihlalo ke asikwazi ukuzibopha ngento esingayazi izovela kuphi nini njani. Kodwa ngikwaziyo ukuthi make kwavela intekelo efana leyo, i-province ya-apply kwi-treasury, ne-province siyocela imali, mase ivelile ingozi because bazobudget abantu babudget ishaye kuphi inkanyamba, mhlawumbe sayishaya Eastern Cape or yoshaye Limpopo or yoshaye KZN. Sikuya ngokuthi yoshaya kuphi bese khona kulungiswa khona ke. So angikwazi ukuthi ngasho ukuthi ngithi hayi sizoba nayo khona isikhwama esisiphethe inkanyamba mashaya la ishaya khona thina solungisa. Asikwazi ukuzibopha kanjalo.
Honorable members, I think I should clarify. I don't think you, honorable members, before we continue to the next question, this issue of a new question, it's not for me to say, no, you can't ask that question. I think we always make sure that the ministers, if they feel it is a new question, they say so. That is what has been happening. I'm going to the next question.
Honorable, on a point of order, Honorable House Chairperson. House Chairperson, according to the rules of this House, which were adopted by this House, a supplementary question must arise from the original question. And always when there is a question and answer session in the House, we always interject when there is a new question. It's the responsibility of the whips to do so. So that is what we've been doing all along. So that prerogative of the member of the executive to respond to that question is not there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chairperson.
I take it. Honorable.
I rise on a point
yes,
of order.
yes,
I don't
honorable.
like rising like the Honorable Deputy
Yes,
Chief Whip.
thank you.
I always wait.
Yes, honorable member.
One of the rules in this year states that one has to respect and abide by the ruling of the presiding officer. You made a ruling. If they are dissatisfied with the ruling, take it to the Rules Committee or take it in the appropriate manner as suggested here. For now, we respect and abide by your ruling, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. We continue to question 300 and,
House Chair.
Honorable Ndlozi, yes.
We want to affirm that your ruling is extremely correct because it gives the impression that we don't suppress debates in the House. So the minister has the prerogative to say, no, in terms of the rules, I think this is a new question. And that means we're open, let them be exposed that they don't know their job, like this Minister of Basic Education, who the whole day
Thank you very
go
much.
to the province, go to the province.
Thank you very much. We now continue to...
Honorable House Chair.
To question number... Honorable members, I'm not going to allow us to debate the issue of this new question. It is in the rules. I agree. It is in the rules.
It's a
but
new...
as we have been, as I've ruled, I don't want to go back to that.
It's a new one, House Chair. It's absolutely new one.
Oh,
I abide
okay.
by your ruling. I abide. Honorable Ndlozi, just sitting down now, says the Honorable Minister doesn't know her duty. Now, this is absolutely unparliamentary, unacceptable, and is casting aspersions. He must withdraw with immediate effect. Thank you. He has just said now.
Honorable member.
You are unparliamentary.
Honorable Ndlozi, I don't think that's how it should respond. To be honest, can I ask if you, my service, did you hear that from Honorable Ndlozi? Did you hear that? Okay. Unfortunately, that was not picked, but we will look into it and I will come back with a ruling. Thank you.
Point of order. Point of order. Chair.
Honorable Bozoli.
Just to point out that in the UK House of Parliament, ministers and the President have to answer questions on any topic that happens to come up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We mollycoddle our ministers like anything.
I'm not going to respond. That's not a point of order. Honorable member, we are not going to debate.
Does the Honourable Bozoli not know that...
That's not a point of order. I'm sorry.
There's no president of the...
Honorable members, unfortunately, time allocated for question has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed on Hansard. The secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on Office of the Chief Justice and Judicial Administration.
I will now ask the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. I recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Honorable Speaker, Chair, we don't object, but we would like to make a declaration.
Okay, I see that the DA is here already. You can follow that. Honorable member? Horn, am I right? Honorable Horn. Yes, thank you. What's happening? Honorable Horn, be patient. This mics, I don't know what's happening. Somewhere it's off.
Okay. Thank you, House Chair. The Office of the Chief Justice is to be lauded for the fact that it has achieved a clean audit for the first time. It is important that the judiciary, as the ultimate guardian of our Constitution and the final arbiter on disputes that may also turn on weak and poor financial governance in the public sector, be seen to be beyond reproach in these matters when it comes to its own affairs. The Office of the Chief Justice is also to be commended that it has taken decisive action in line with undertakings given to the Portfolio Committee during the budgetary review and recommendation engagements of the last 2 years. Because as we know, not many departments or entities really make good on those types of promises. In the same vein, Chair, the Office of the Chief Justice has reacted in a constructive manner to our pleas over the last 2 years that the duty of judicial accountability also entails a form of engagement with the legislature in respect of performance indicators other than financial management indicators. Unfortunately, the Office of the Chief Justice, as a structure aimed at strengthening judicial independence, remains but a half-baked cake. No progress whatsoever has been made during this fifth Parliament to settle on a final court administration model for South Africa, which is and was always to be the final phase of the process that began with the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, effected way back in 2012. History books will ultimately reflect negatively in this regard on the ANC and the incumbent minister, who, in the words of the Chief Justice in 2014, has been demonstrating unbelievable resistance to the attainment of institutional independence on the part of the judiciary, a situation that has sadly remained unchanged since then. I thank you.
Thank you. Mhlomphehi Ndlozi.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Traditionally, we in the African Socialist Revolution have always ever supported revenue expounded on the judiciary and the Chief Justice in particular. We do this because fundamentally we see the judiciary as a non-negotiable centerpiece of a democratic society. In the interest of its independence, transformation, and efficient administration of justice, we support this report. We want to express our deepest and sincere concerns, however, on the administration of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry being housed at TISO Black Star headquarters. The public integrity and reputation of a commission that must investigate the Gupta family with the complicity of people like Zuma and Mr. Godan in how it looted public resources. Why is it housed at TISO Black Star? Part of how the Gupta family did this was through their name.
Honorable Ndlozi, take your seat. Yes, Honorable.
Honorable Ndlozi is repeating what one of his members attempted earlier this week. Should, and in fact, in terms of what he himself said earlier today, should there be any matter he wishes to take up with respect to the Honorable Gordon, he has to do so not by way of allegations in his speech, but through a substantive motion. He has just breached the rule he upheld earlier today.
Honorable Ndlozi, you know that if you are going to say that about a member of this House, you have to bring it with a substantive motion. Please.
Honorable Speaker, with the greatest respect, I was hoping...
no, don't respond to honorable member.
I'm asking your guidance.
I'm just saying continue.
I really want to
speech.
withdraw. What is it that I said that is wrong?
Honorable member,
I want to withdraw it with the greatest respect. But what is it? What is it that I said that is wrong? She
Honorable Ndlozi,
she just had Godan. And then like a cheerleader, she just stands. I don't know what I said that is wrong. With the greatest respect.
Could you continue?
Honorable Lady Godan, what's happening?
Honorable Ndlozi, can you continue with your speech? And please, if you have to put any aspersions on any member of this House, you do it in a substantive motion.
Part of how the Gupta family did this was through...
Honorable Ndlozi, pardon me again.
Point of order. Firstly, I'm not Naledi Godan. The honorable member should not address me in that way. And secondly...
but if you are not, maybe I'm talking to Naledi Godan outside the House.
Honorable Ndlozi, Honorable Ndlozi, please, the member had not concluded. Can we respect the rules and call each other respectively as it is in the rules?
I respect this honorable person outside the House.
Yeah. Continue.
Chairperson, sorry. But Chair, also the minister didn't even quote the rule. So we're interested in
Honorable member, that's not a point of order. Continue.
And if she's not...
Continue, Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you. Part of how the Gupta family did this was through their newspaper publications like The New Age. What is the commission doing at the headquarters of the Sunday Times, Business Day, Financial Mail, and the Times? We call on the Chief Justice to re-evaluate this decision and move that commission to a public building, a university, or a community hall. We must further express disappointment at the elite venues at which commissions are ordinarily always placed at. Justice must have a humble, accessible image, accessible particularly to our people who are the rank and file in society. We accept this report, but we're making this call. The Zondo Commission must get out of TISO Black Star headquarters with immediate effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. IFP, Honorable Singh.
This stool is no good for me. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, we all know the saying, justice delayed is justice denied. But I fear that this has become so colloquial through overuse that we have long lost the fundamental import of the saying. The erosion of the rule of law in South Africa, which has been gradual since the dawn of our democracy, is now under serious threat of usurpation by forces obedient to one single master, money, and the accumulation thereof at any cost. Besides universal suffrage, an independent and effective judiciary is one of the most important checks and balances of any constitutional democracy. The rule of law is paramount and all are subject to its supremacy. The Office of the Chief Justice is mandated to strengthen judicial governance and safeguard the rule of law, both of which are considered crucial to the transformative promises as contained in our Constitution. The IFP supports the Office of the Chief Justice in its call for absolute independence and for control over its own budget, which is fundamental to ensuring its independence. But having said that, with great freedom comes great responsibility, and in this regard, we would caution against perhaps being too liberal with spending. The Constitution 17th Amendment Act of 2013 affirms the Chief Justice as the head of the judiciary, responsible for the efficient exercise of judicial functions of all courts. Chairperson, many of our courts, our NPA and SIU, are compromised because of state capture, and such malaise most certainly will take many years to rectify. We need to immediately create another Chapter 9 institution, an integrity commission, to prevent, combat, investigate, and prosecute grand corruption and kleptocracy. We need special prosecutors. We need specialized anti-corruption courts. We are at war with corruption.
Thank you very much.
The IFP supports this BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP, Babu Mngcabe.
Siyabonga sihlalo ngaphambili siqembu le-NFP siphakama nokuthi siweseke lo mbiko wehhovisi lenhloko yamajaji kulelizwe. Kodwa kuyasikhalisa ukuthi sihlalo imali enikezwe lo mnyango ophethwe inhloko yamajaji ayanele kahle mawubheka umsebenzi lo mnyango ofanele ngabe uyawenza. Kakhulukazi nje oqala ukulungiswa kwezinkantolo nokwakhiwa kwazo ukuba zibe sesimeni esikahle. Ngumsebenzi lo sadinga imali eningi kakhulu. Uma ubheke endaweni zasemakhaya izinkantolo zisene space noma indawo encane kakhulu. Uma nje kugcwele kuqalwa umsebenzi uma kuwumsombuluko cisha kukho ngisho indawo yokuma ngoba indawo zincane. Kwesinye isikhathi uthola ukuthi nalo kokuletha umoya ukupholisa umoya akusebenzi. Konke ke lokhu siyazi ukuthi kubhekelwe ihhovisi lenhloko yamajaji. Okunye futhi esicela ukuthi kuqiniswe khona kulomnyango ukuthi ukusebenziswana kwawo kakhulukazi nezinkantolo ama-traditional courts eqeqesheni abantu abasebenza lezo zinkantolo abalekelelo ndaba ezitha nako futhi kuqiniswe kakhulu ukuze kunyuke izinga lomsebenzi wenzekayo. Okunye futhi ongasiphathi kahle ukuthi kubonakala ngazi ukuthi uqeqeshwa kahle kwezimantshi akukho ngendlela efanele. Kuphinde kube yilabo futhi nabo abatolikayo ezinkantolo. Kubhlungu ehlala ukuthi labo basuke beye enkantolo abanye bengenayo imfundo ephezulu kakhulu. Uthola ukuthi bakhuluma ngendlela ethile yokubeka kwimantshi. Kodwa lo tolikayo atolika umathanda wakhe nje into engampela ephuca ubulungiswa kulona othuma ngalelo. Siyaweseka lo mbiko kodwa ngalezo zinto siyacela ukuthi ukhuphule amasokisi ekusebenziseni nale inhlaka esengizibalile. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Sithokoze awumhlonishwa UDM Babu Nkwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair, Honorable House Chair and honorable members. The judiciary, through its independence and authority in the state, plays a critical role in achieving the goal, especially of consolidating our democracy. As we move into 25 years of our constitutional democracy, and given the current exposure of corruption involving well-known figures, this role becomes particularly important. While we celebrate some of the successes of our country, especially about the independence of the judiciary that continues to be displayed by our courts, it is, however, very concerning to read the Human Rights Watch World Report 2018. This report reveals that whilst the judiciary is widely recognized as independent, companies in South Africa do indicate at times that they are not entirely confident of the independence of this arm of the state. The report further claims that bribes and irregular payment in exchange for favorable judicial decisions are a common practice. We must, as we make this point, commend steps that were taken recently. For an example, in April 2018, the Times Live reported that a magistrate in Randburg was sentenced to 15 years in jail for 2 corruption charges related to accepting a bribe to stop an extradition of Botswana fugitive Paul Matabela, while recently this House adopted a report from the Portfolio Committee of Justice to suspend and withhold salaries of certain magistrates who were alleged or found to be on the wrong side of the law. These are important steps that we must continue to take in order to ensure the absolute independence and the confidence of our people in the judiciary. It is of fundamental importance that we create a system that works, a judicial system that works and that is above reproach, as it continues to discharge its constitutional mandate without fear, favor, and prejudice. The United Democratic Movement supports this report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ACDP.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the ACDP supports this report, as we do support a judiciary-led independent court administration. And the Office of the Chief Justice is aimed at ensuring an efficient and effective criminal justice system. Now, Chair, the committee was unable to properly gauge the effectiveness of court performance without access to court statistics or further details regarding court performance. And whilst the committee appreciates that the Office of the Chief Justice is unable to provide such information, how are we expected to make recommendations regarding the allocation of the vote without access to information on how well the courts are performing? Now, this information will be made available this coming Friday when the committee meets with the Chief Justice and the heads of court in Johannesburg at the Constitutional Court. And we from the ACDP suggest that the decision on this report should be held over until next week to evaluate the information we will receive only on Friday, to have a proper evaluation of the efficiency of our courts. And in addition, and possibly more importantly, the court administration model must be finalized without delay. This will provide an appropriate accountability model for judicial functions. The proposals were submitted to the department some years ago by the judiciary, and the ACDP does not understand the delays in dealing with this matter. In the meantime, an interim mechanism to allow the Justice Committee to access court data will be discussed on Friday with the Chief Justice during its meeting. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ANC.
Thanks, Honourable House Chair and Honourable Members. The end of the apartheid era meant political and social victory for the majority of South Africans who were previously marginalized and stripped of their dignity. Although this meant democracy under a newly elected administration, the colonial and apartheid structures inherited were very much untransformed. The judiciary was one of those structures. It is the African National Congress which identified the need to transform the judiciary so as to address the injustices of the past and move South Africa forward. A mere change in character of the judiciary would mean nothing when the very structure and system of the judiciary remained essentially untransformed. One of the important observations made by the ANC was that justice was not accessible, particularly to the previously disadvantaged. The justice system excluded the majority of South Africans. The court divisions were fragmented. Justice was only for those who could afford to access the courts. The demarcation of the courts made them exclusionary, particularly for those living in the Bantu stands. There were no specialized courts. The judiciary was far from being independent. There were no specialized court, and the judiciary was far from being independent. Judges on the bench were inculcated under a system of punitive jurisprudence. With a new constitutional democracy, changes needed to take place. This included the training of judicial officers. Honorable House Chair, the ANC's 52nd National Conference resolved that the Chief Justice, as head of the judicial authority, should exercise authority and responsibility over the development and implementation of norms and standards for the exercise of judicial functions such as the allocation of
Honourable
judges,
Member, your time is
cases
now
and
expired.
courtrooms. As the ANC support the report. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, are there any parties who want to record their objections to this report? None agree to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, National Prosecuting Authority, Information Regulator, Legal Aid South Africa, Special Investigating Unit, South African Human Rights Commission, and Public Protector.
I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Are there any objections? There's no objections. However, there's a request for declarations. The DA?
Sorry, House Chair. On this one, we object.
Oh.
No, we thought you are still speaking about the Chief Justice.
No, we've moved
Apologies.
on, Chief.
We're objecting here.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, House Chair. This report gives a clear snapshot of the good, the bad, and the ugly in the justice environment. The good being the amazing ability of Legal Aid South Africa to maintain the highest standards of financial governance, despite a reduction in budgetary provision. The bad being the regression in some audit outcomes, the inability of the information regulator to get out of the starting blocks, and the continued backward slide in court performance if one looks at the decrease of the real number of cases enrolled and finalized versus the ever higher number of crimes being reported by South Africans. The ugly being the leadership instability at both the Public Protector and the NPA. The Office of the Public Protector being earmarked by not only serious doubts about the will or ability to understand the law by the Public Protector herself, but also by CEOs and CFOs being hired and fired in a way only Donald Trump hiring and firing media officers and attorney generals can match. The NPA not only struggling with a vacancy rate of around 20% on the level of court prosecutors, but also being debilitated by the removal of an NDPP who was not properly appointed after his predecessor was not properly removed. All of which, of course, thanks to the political meddling of the ANC and the Minister of Justice. The ugliest, however, Chair, is being faced with the reality that there is, under this government, no coordinated and focused effort to effectively deal with public sector corruption as a crime. The PC not only heard of the anti-corruption task team not having met for months, but also of 2 presidential proclamations to the SIU not having resulted in any court action, despite being issued years ago, and which deals with, yes, Chair, SASSA and BOSASA. One can only wonder what could have been achieved had they been dealt with effectively and timely. I thank you.
The EFF.
Honorable House Chairperson, we reject the BRRRs on the Department of Justice and Correctional Services, its entities, as well as the Chapter 9 institutions, the Public Protector and the Human Rights Commission. The deleterious effect of the Zuma years is best illustrated through the dysfunctionality of the institutions of justice in this country. The NPA has been thoroughly rendered useless and a pawn in the political machinery playing themselves out in this country. It is for this reason we have never had a head of the NPA who finishes their term. The SIU was used by Zuma to cover up his thieving ways, and they even produced another report contradicting that of the Public Protector on the Nkandla scandal. The Human Rights Commission has committed a blunder of being drawn in on the expropriation without compensation debate, even going to the extent of being lobbied by right-wing groups such as AfriForum to come to Parliament to warn us about expropriating land without compensation. All this shows the important institutions which ought to be guidance of our Constitution have been captured for narrow, nefarious means by a few. They are completely dysfunctional, and Parliament has not done anything to bring these institutions back to sanity. We reject this BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Ideally, our society must be grounded in principles of justice, equality, and fairness. However, our institutions which are mandated to ensure these principles become living principles are severely compromised. We have seen far too many examples of ordinary South Africans being denied justice because, firstly, they do not reap the rewards of economic justice, and further to this, they don't have high-level government connections. The South African Human Rights Commission, which should be the custodian of the very human rights charter enshrined in our constitution, has been failing our people, in particular those who find themselves in the fringes of the economy. The Human Rights Commission has been sitting on their hands in regards to genetically modified organisms and have not been able to conclude an ongoing investigation into the toxicity of these organisms which our people are exposed to in their diet. It is an indictment on the Human Rights Commission in failing to uphold one of the basic human rights principles for all South Africans to lead a good quality, healthy lifestyle. Honourable Chairperson, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome the transparent manner in which our President will make his appointment for the National Director of Public Prosecution. We eagerly await a top-class individual who will clean up the mess in the NPA and restore this institution with integrity and trust. The IFP support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NFP.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. NFP supports the report before us of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. However, we have observed the following concerns. The number of magistrates suspended from the profession seems to be increasing on a high level. Almost all these magistrates are suspended for fraud and corruption charges. This is a very bad image, not only for the department, but for the country as well. We expect those tasked with the administration of justice to do so with professionalism and high respect. Therefore, the training of magistrates on leadership skills and ethics must be prioritized, since some of these magistrates are in a high position of chief magistrates. We are encouraged to note that the Legal Aid Board continues to get clean audits. However, the funding cuts will compromise the work of this entity. We cannot expect the best service delivery when the board is understaffed due to budget constraints. The Legal Aid Board is doing a very important task in ensuring that even the poorest of the poor do get access to justice as per the constitution of our country. In this regard, the NFP would like to applaud Judge President Mlambo and his team, but also urge the department to increase the funding of the Legal Aid Board. We are also expecting the State President to announce the new head of the NPA soon. This, we believe, will bring order and stability within the NPA. We are very concerned about a very high vacancy rate within the NPA, especially that the majority of those vacant posts are prosecutorial positions. Clearly, this also increases the backlog on matters to be prosecuted. We urge the department to study and consider
Honourable
the
Member, your time
recommendations
is now
of the Portfolio
expired.
Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. The UDM.
The UDM supports the report. The progress made so far with regard to the selection and possible ultimate appointment of a permanent head of the National Prosecuting Authority is welcomed. Excuse my flu. The advocacy group, Right to Know, has forced the President to make the interviews for the new NPA National Director open to the media through a court order. We welcome that. We wish to urge the President and government in general to always appreciate the need for transparency and accountability. The UDM and the rest of South Africa call for the appointment of the best candidate who will work with other relevant role players to restore the dignity and confidence of the citizens.
House Chair.
My humble
In
apologies.
Order.
Point of
Honorable
order.
Fultane, your chief whip wants to rise on a point
No,
of order. Why are you rising, honorable member?
My concern is that the ANC members of parliament are drowning out my speaker. I do recognize that they find his Perry-wise voice very romantic today, but he's got an important point to make. Can you listen to him, please?
Now, I thought he lost his tenor voice and is using his bass voice today. Continue, honorable member.
Thank you. In September, the Special Investigation Unit head, Andy Motubi, reported that the NPA is sitting on 686 mostly corrupt cases, which the unit has investigated and handed over to the NPA for a prosecutorial decision. This is a devastating and disturbing revelation. Whilst prosecution and justice is delayed, injustice by the corrupt public officials is deepening, robbing the poorest of the poor of any hope for a better life. Minister, we do not have to wait for the appointment of the new NDPP to effect action. Both the SIU and NPA are institutions within your ministry, and therefore you have the ability and power to ensure that they comply and cooperate. We cannot allow them to fail to cooperate in the execution of their constitutional mandate. Many a times, the president makes proclamations for the investigation of cruelty against people, yet we never get the results. It is clear that the department has to make an urgent intervention. The reduction in the staff of the department by over 1,300 to include people from the legal aid is quite disturbing, and we fear to imagine the negative impact of that kind of action. As I said earlier, we support the report. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. The ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP supports this report and commends the department on eventually obtaining an unqualified audit on the third-party funds. I've been waiting for this for almost 20 years, and all I can say is, hallelujah, hallelujah, well done. There was a disclaimer a few years ago, and now there is an unqualified audit on third-party funds. So well done, well done. However, the department itself received a qualified audit opinion with various findings, and there was a deterioration from the previous unqualified audits. And of course, as we know, one of the department's main priorities is to build safer communities and fight corruption. The SIU and the NPA, with the Asset Forfeiture Unit, are supposed to play key roles in this regard. Regrettably, notwithstanding volumes of evidence, prima facie evidence available in many reports, including this Parliament's prima facie evidence in the ESCOM inquiry, we see very little action being taken. This morning, executives from ESCOM indicated that they were working closely with law enforcement agencies, but it is beyond their control. And today we see no arrests in what to us are very clear cases of fraud and corruption arising from state capture and other nefarious acts that have been committed at our state-owned enterprises. And so whilst we appreciate budgetary constraints, surely we need to see some action. And hopefully, when there's a new NDPP is appointed, we will see some arrests. Whilst we also appreciate that the budget cuts have an impact, clearly the delivery of justice is labor-intensive, and as the committee noted in its report, without knowledgeable officials, our legal system will eventually collapse, and with it, our democracy. The ACDP shares that sentiment, but will support this report. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The ANC supports the BRRR of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and all entities and institutions that receive the allocation under the Justice and Constitutional Development Vote 21. Access to justice incorporates the right to legal representation. The setting up of institutions such as Legal Aid South Africa, which provides for free legal services to the indigent, gives effect to this right. We are pleased that Legal Aid South Africa obtained an unqualified audit for the past 17 years. With that said, we find the budget cuts concerning when it comes to Legal Aid South Africa, because this institution not only fulfills a constitutional mandate, but also remains vital in assisting the masses of our people who cannot afford legal services. We recommend that the allocation of legal aid South Africa be relooked so to ensure that the masses of our people do not suffer injustice. The SIU has obtained an unqualified audit outcome for the second consecutive year, and this must be congratulated. While the NPA was seized with challenges, President Ramaphosa in his SONA said, I quote, "We will urgently attend to the leadership issues at the National Prosecuting Authority to ensure that this critical institution is stabilized and able to perform its mandate unhindered." To date, a panel to appoint the new National Director of Public Prosecutions has been appointed. The NPA is critical in the proper function of South Africa's criminal justice system. It is encouraging that the public protector is gaining the confidence of South Africans in general and the DA in particular. The fact that they refer cases to her means that the fact that Honorable Horn come here to say otherwise can only be regarded as hypocrisy of the highest kind. The ANC supports this report. Thank you very much.
Are there any objections, honourable members? No objections. Are there an objection?
Please note the objection of the EFF.
It will be noted, and with that objection, the report is adopted. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, on Department of Correctional Services and Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services for 2017-18 financial year.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thanks, House Chair. We move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There are objections. I put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it. There's a request for declarations. The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Chair. The engagements with the Department of Correctional Services and the Judicial Inspectorate in this report on it tells a horror story. A story of a department which stumbles from the one poor audit and performance report to the next. A situation, if one is to believe the executive and the ANC, caused by forces of nature, factors beyond control, like contractors being appointed by DCS being liquidated faster than the rate at which fuel prices are increased in this country. Never mind that this has resulted in the creation of only 400 of the promised 4,000 bed spaces during this fifth parliament, contributing largely to the unacceptably high levels of overpopulation at our country's correctional facilities. All of this, Chair, while our President strangely settled on the ever-struggling DCS to seemingly give Mr. Arthur Fraser a soft landing and some shelter, while his nefarious actions over the state security are being investigated. It has also been rather odd that after the annual showing of this horror movie at the Portfolio Committee, some ANC members, like the Honourable Mahila, would always feel obliged to congratulate DCS on what they call good work being done. But now we can understand all of this. It was really always about congratulating DCS on its ability to continue with and protect the arrangement that it operates as a primary vehicle through which vast amount of taxpayers' money are being laundered through dubious contracts to companies like Bosasa. The latter in 2017 being awarded yet another contract with 500 million rand, despite the SIU having found that it have benefited corruptly previously from DCS. Portions of which we now know was always destined to end up in the pockets of individuals belonging to the ANC, ordinary members of this House, the deputy ministers, and even the President. For this reason, we reject this report.
The EFF.
House Chair, the EFF rejects the BRR for the Department of Correctional Services and Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services. Our correctional centers have become breeding grounds for hardening criminals in this country. This is so because corruption has become a culture in South African prison. Those who have access to money and resources can buy their way into continue with their criminal behavior inside prison, while those who are poor are subjected to unbearable abuse. It is a well-known fact that most of the cash in trusts chased and most hits on gang-associated people are organized from prisons. Control and consequence management measures at correctional facilities do not exist. The Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services ought to be completely independent, both functional and in terms of budget allocation. It needs this functional independence to be an effective oversight mechanism. This requires legislative reform to cut off its financial and administrative interlinkage with the Department of Correctional Services. Its power to only make recommendations are further weakened by this lack of independence from the department. The provision of enforcement powers and the ability to make binding disciplinary recommendation may increase its effectiveness. We therefore, as EFF, reject this report.
The IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable van der Merwe of the IFP said something that is very fundamental for people of South Africa to know, that our women and children who are living in shelters, who are also victims of abuse, are only receiving 9 rands per day for their meal. Yet the same government is spending 398 rands per day per inmate housed in our correctional facilities across the country. Honorable Chairperson, it's shameful that despite the fact that we spend so much money on our inmates, prisoners' condition in our country remain a concern. In terms of cases of sexual assault, violence, and intimidation in our prison due to overcrowding, needs to have us the budget readjusted in order to provide more beds and better health facilities for the inmates. This could clearly go a long way to curb the prevalence of disease in our prisons. Honorable Chair, it's all good and well for us to wish the best for our facilities. Yet, according to this report, irregular expenditure has increased exponentially, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure skyrocketed from 1 million to 41 million within 2 years. How are we going to ensure that our correctional facilities are successful in rehabilitating the inmates and to ensure that they become productive members of the society when they are released? Honorable Chair, in some instances, our prisoners have become organized crime syndicate workshops, and this is something that the department must try to address and clamp down urgently. Inmates, upon entering prison, should immediately feel the sense that they want to be cooperating with the authorities and that they want to become rehabilitated. The environment in our correctional services should not be a conducive one for inmates to re-offend, nor should it allow crime to be orchestrated within, such as we have seen in the scourge for catch and transit haste. The IFP support this report, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NFP.
Sibonge sihlalo siyawayiseka umbiko. Wozohlumelelisa kwemilo emajele. Kodwa sifuna ukucela kumnyango sekugcizelele ukuthi awuqine umthetho kulabo abangaphakathi emajele. Ngoba sokunento ekhona yokuthi bethi abantu bengaphakathi beboshiwe kodwa bakwazi ukuhlela igigaba zobugebengu ezokwenzeka ngaphandle emphakathini. Isibonelo saleso nje siyazi mhlambe nathi ukuthi kuye kwabulawa umeli odumile la eKapa. Konke ukuphenya kukhombisa ukuthi ukubulawa kwakhe bekuhlelwe ejele ngalo kuyilabo abangaphakathi. Ngeke sisivumeke isimo sokuthi umphakathi ungaphephi igebengu maze semphakathini. Zithi noma seyiboshiwe futhi umphakathi uphinde ungaphephi kuphume inhlelo ezisuka ejele ukuthi osibani bani bazobulawa kanjani. Sicela ukuthi uqine umthetho. Kuphinde futhi kuphenywe ubudlelwano obuphakathi kwalabo abasebenza khona ejele okuthiwa ojele kanye neziboshwa. Ngoba unye ubudlelwano kwakhona uthola ukuthi yiko lokwenza ukuthi igcine sengena ikhali ngaphakathi ejele, sokungena insango ngaphakathi sesemthethweni kami. Kodwa ke sokungena izinto ezibhenywayo ezingekho emthethweni. Siyafisa ukuthi kubhekwe ke lokho kakhulu. Okugcina ngigcizelele kumhlonishwa ungqongqoshe ukuthi uma sebeqeqeshiwe bafowethu ngaphakathi nodadewethu bathola iziqu baqeqeshwa kumakhono abo, uma sebephuma sebeqedile igwebo zabo abangaphindi futhi bagwetshwe intambo abaqashi kuthiwe ngoba wake waba sendlini wakwaba seyikhindini ngeke usaqashwa. Lokho kuyakusakona ubulungiswa, sacela ukuthi kubhekwe lokho. Uma umuntu esepanishiwe akaphumeke phela ke ayosebenza ngoba useze wafunda nangaphakathi wathola iziqu. Ngaphandle kwaloko sawuseka umbiko.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The UDM.
Job. The UDM supports the report. The report by the JICS has revealed problems of overcrowding, suicides, and shortage of care for mental illness in patients and prisoners in our prisons. The report further reveals incidents of death and poor management of inmates who would have been diagnosed with some form of mental illness. For their safety and successful rehabilitation into society, they need to be kept separately from the general inmates. So far, it appears that this is not the case, as they are kept and treated with the general population of inmates. It is clear that this situation is urgent, needs urgent attention, and it has to be attended to expeditiously. In this regard, the UDM suggests the following. The department must ensure that it complies with all regulated requirements of managing inmates. For instance, inmates with mental illness, especially those who could be declared state patients in terms of the Mental Health Care Act, must be transferred to specialized facilities within the stipulated time after receiving notice. More collaborative efforts with other state institutions, non-governmental organizations, as well as inmates must be forged in. Whilst the country's correctional service instruments are reviewed for their effectiveness and efficiency in reducing overcrowding, it must also be refined so that it can contribute to the general reduction of crime in our country. The department should enhance security measures across all prison and rehabilitation centers in the whole of South Africa to ensure that inmates are safe from one another and that they do not escape from prison. The use of force by the department's officials on inmates is totally unacceptable unless it is justified within the prescripts of the South African law. That is when you defend yourself. And that is regulated. You do not over-defend yourself.
Honourable Member, your time has expired.
That you are attacking. We support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The ACDP.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the ACDP is concerned that yet again, this department has received a qualified audit with irregular expenditure reaching 1.8 billion rand. And there are no less than 4 SIU investigations into this department. And of course, having traveled around to a number of the prisons during oversight, the issue of overcrowding remains a great challenge. And it has increased to 38% in the 2017 to 2018, up from the previous year. So one of the challenges is the failure to create new bed spaces over consecutive years. And this has, of course, increased the number of sicknesses, unnatural deaths in prison. And we are taught that to consider those in prison as though we were with them. That is the scripture, so let us be mindful of how we treat our prisoners. So we also see that the department can control the number of persons that are sentenced and remand in custody when it comes to bail, when it comes to overcrowding, when it comes to delivering infrastructure projects. We've got Section 49G of the Correctional Services Act, other sections that can be used to reduce overcrowding. But over years, it seems that this is a continual challenge for this department. Lastly, from the ACDP's perspective over this last period, it is very clear that given the heavy workload of the Justice Committee, it was not the correct decision to collapse correctional services and justice into one portfolio committee. I've said it from the beginning, and I trust that this will be reconsidered. We cannot visit all the courts, all the entities reporting to us, as well as all the prisons, and I trust that this will be considered. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ANC.
nqanga nentsiba zayo. Iqaqa liziva ununka. Tatu hon. Phambi kokuba ubone umqadi, phambi kokuba ubone isibelisweni la zalana wakho i-ANC ngento edibene kusasa, susa lo mqadi kwelakho iliso kuqala. Umbutho wakhongolozo ichasa ngokupheleleyo le ngxelo yesebenzoluleko. Okokoke lisebe lathi layekiswa ngumbutho wesizwe ukuba leli ukuvalela kwesimnyama nalapho umuntu enziwa ikheswa nomshuluko lenziwa isebe lezoluleko saqhaba kwangoko iziphumo. Amabandla aphuculwa atshintshe indlela zokugwenxa anikwa izakhono zobungcali ezokuxhela nezemfundo ephakamileyo nesezantsi nezokuxhensa njalo njalo. Galelo lamabandla ekuphuculeni uluntu nalo liyabonakala. Akha izikolo zabahlolokazi, izindlu zabahlolokazi, ezabadala, izikolo zentsana, ndibala ntoni na. Amaxhoba noluntu lunikwa ilungelo lokuthatha inxapheko kwizigqibo zeenqawule nezamabandla ngalinye. Kaloku akho mgqomo wokulahla abantu. Nokuqhwesha kwamabandla kuthothile kakhulu. Kulo nyaka umiyo kukhulu elinama-47 amawaka amabanjwa akhoyo kweli lizwe, 50 kuphela aqhweshileyo, kanti nalapho untsasana uthembende ekhondweni. Akukho nzwana engenasiphaka kaloku. Neli sebe kambe linengxwabangxwaba zomzwalo. Amabanjwa ayaphuphuma ezintolongweni ngokunganyamezelekileyo. Enye yezizathu zokuba izakhiwo esinazo zakhiwa nhlandlolo zizezamambalwa. Namhlanje abantu bangumbono omxesibe. Isebe kambe liyazama ukulandisa, kambe imali inqongophele. Abasebenzi banqongophele. Sonxili yesizwe iba nemfobe. Kanjalo lisebe liyabudika, libamba, livuka inja. Libamba livale lonke amagosa alagwenxa. Kulo nyaka limiyo elisebe amawaka 3,847 abanjwa. Siyaqhuba, sizwa nobuqhophololo. Lo mxela ke ngombutho wesizwe.
Honourable member,
isizwe siyawubona yaye
your time
sithe
is
gqolo
now expired.
ukuvalela. Sizawuthi gqolo ukuvotela i-ANC mazenetholo.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, are there any objections to this report? Yes, Honourable Member.
Your Chair, if you can note the objection of the DA, please.
Objection will be noted.
Also note the objection of EFF.
Objection will be noted.
And the ACDP, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With those objections, the report is adopted. And Honourable Members, that concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.